Hi, I'm Jen.
I'm Sophia.
And I'm Ryan.
And welcome to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
This week on Every Rom Com, we're visiting the world of sports and sports agents as we dig into the work of Cameron Crowe.
We'll meet one of the cutest kids in film history, one of the most protective sisters in rom-coms, and a title character who might be the least developed character in his own film.
And we'll ask whether the classic that brought us Show Me the Money and You Had Me at Hello has stood the test of time as we discuss the 1996 Tom Cruise Renee Zellweger hit, Jerry Maguire. Hello.
Hi.
So, you may have noticed from the introduction that for the very first time in every rom-com history, we have an actual man on the podcast, which is Ryan. Congratulations, you're the first.
Wow. Shocking.
And it has been kind of purposeful to have mostly women on the podcast, but like
Makes sense.
Ryan, you're like one of really, I think, the most accomplished people I know and like kind of diversely talented people I know. So I met Ryan Estrada, though, when I was living in Korea, Busan, South Korea, and I was at a spoken word and I was looking for people to be in Much Ado About Nothing. And I remember, Ryan, you came over to me and you were like volunteering. I think you first volunteered your not wife at the time, but wife now, Hyun-suk, to be in the play. And then there was another role too. And so you ended up taking on a role of sexton in Much Ado About Nothing. I can't actually remember what a sexton is anymore. I knew it at the time. But like at first I was just like, oh, this is a pretty cool guy who reads stuff at spoken word and he's going to be in my play. And later I found out that Ryan has like a whole world of projects going on at all times. Like just he's into everything. And I'll read that in a second. You'll find out. But one of the things I wanted to say about you, Ryan, though, is that despite having all these things going on, you were always the kind of person who was there to help other people with their projects. And you have an astounding amount of energy. I don't know how you do it all. I don't know how you're actually on this podcast right now, but I think it's awesome. And so I'm going to read the introduction that Ryan prepared for us, and you'll get just a glimpse of what he's got going on. So Ryan Estrada is an author, artist, and adventurer who has done so many things that in this intro, he will only mention those things related to rom-coms. He is the co-author of the award-winning, best-selling graphic novel Banned Book Club, and is currently working on a sequel for Penguin Books that he pitched as Love Actually Meets Persepolis. He worked with DC Comics on The Kind, a rom-com graphic novel about a werewolf trying to date between two full moons. He's told his own nonfiction story, Self Offload, a rom-com gone wrong on many shows and stages, about the time he got off an airplane for love and accidentally shut down an airport and was locked up as a potential terrorist. All of this and more can be found at ryanestrada.com. And he also did voiceover work on one of the worst Bollywood movies ever made. I'm going to try to pronounce this. We'll see how I do. Aapka Suroor, the movie, The Real Luv Story. So welcome to the podcast, Ryan Estrada. You've just got tons going on. This introduction doesn't even cover it. How do you do it all? That's my first question for you.
I just want to add one thing that I see that you fixed what you assumed was a typo in that title. But the title of the movie actually is Aapka Suroor, the movie with two E's, The Real Luv Story with a U. It is so bad that even the title has two spelling mistakes in it. But yes, I just do many, many things. I'm mostly a cartoonist and author, but I just love artistic endeavors so much that I just grab as many of them as I can and peer pressure everyone I know into doing artistic endeavors themselves.
And then you're like in other people's stuff all the time, like working on short films, or like you ushered for one of my plays, for God's sakes. Like I just, no, I don't know where you get the energy. Like, I don't know if you have some kind of secret, but like, I applaud you. And
I just like making stuff.
And I also want to mention your wife, Kim Hyun-suk, who is the co-author of you with Banned Book Club, and it's her own story. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of it was like really just straight her story? Is there anything that you changed, or is it just straight up Hyun-suk's memories, basically.
Basically, it's not just her memories, but we interviewed every one of her friends, the other band book club members, some of her teachers, some of her old classmates, her parents, and just kind of took everyone's stories. And it was kind of a bunch of stories that took place over her 4 years in college. And I just kind of condensed them into like one single narrative where, because it was, they were disconnected stories. So it wasn't like this led to this led to this. And I was the one that had to figure out, how do I make this into a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end? So everything in there did happen, but I just kind of mixed them around until they made sense as a story.
Added kind of the structure to it, yeah. And how long had you been thinking together about making this project?
That one came together very quickly. It was something we never really considered. Hyun-suk, it was something I didn't know about my wife, that she had been in a banned book club and was interrogated by the KCIA and followed by the police. We'd been married for many, many years, and she just casually mentioned one day, as we're climbing a mountain, oh yeah, back when I was, interrogated by the KCIA. I'm like, wait, you what? And she just never thought to mention it. And I posted on Twitter about it. And then a publisher offered us a book deal. And she was like, I asked her, do you think we can make a book? She's like, I don't know. There's not really that much interesting to it. And then the more questions I asked her, every question had a fascinating answer. So I'm like, yeah, I think we can make a book.
Yeah, she can be humble the way you are humble, I think. And I'm intrigued by the sequel. I think that's a really interesting pitch. Is it going to be like sort of more college days stuff?
Yeah. Basically, it's centered around the idea that back in the day, when there was dictatorship in Korea, there was a curfew, and there were only on holidays could you stay out late and not be tracked by the police. And every one of the Korean holidays, of course, there's parental stuff you have to do as family stuff. But there was only one day of the year when there was a curfew, but no familial obligations because it wasn't a Korean holiday, and that was Christmas. So for generations, Christmas was the night of debauchery. And so it's a story about one Christmas night, when the only night of the year that people are free.
Wow. I'm really interested in that one. Yeah, I read Banned Book Club and I thought it was really great and really relevant, like, to our times now. People are getting very into activism again in the US and just across the world too. And I would recommend reading Banned Book Club to anyone. But then the sequel also further intrigues me. So that sounds great.
Okay, you might cut this, but just thinking about okay, I'm a preschool TA and we're talking about our lessons for next month, and there'll be Christmas around the world.
There you go.
It'd be totally inappropriate to be and the one in Korea where it was the night of debauchery children, and they'd be like, oh, they're 4 and 5. And they'd be like, what does that mean, Miss Sophia?
Yeah, so explain to the kids why there's a lot of 50-year-old Koreans born in September.
Yeah, these days it seems to be more cake oriented, but there's dating too, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
It's just kind of evolved. It's a couple's holiday instead of a family holiday because that's where it began.
Yeah. I didn't know that tidbit, so that's great. And then you all this other stuff. I don't even know where to begin with asking you about all the other stuff. I guess the Indian movie that I probably was butchering the pronunciation of, that was a while ago, right? When you were doing that?
A long time ago, yeah. Just when I lived in India, I applied to an agent who's looking for actors, and they put me on this film, and it's a really, really bad movie. They didn't record any sound on set. It was filmed in Germany, and so they needed to redub all the voices, but they couldn't get the same actors. So just grabbed whatever foreigners they could off the street, or they emailed them, and brought us into a room, and literally someone sat there and fast forwarded through the movie until they saw a foreigner talking, stopped and said, you play this one. It was so careless that there's single characters that are played by 6 different people at different appearances because they couldn't be bothered to keep track of who was playing who. There's one character that's played by the first time she's played by an English woman, the second time she's played by an Irish woman, the third time she has an Australian accent, then she has an Irish every time a different accent. My big role is I played a police officer. They stopped the film. They said, okay, you're going to play this cop. They played the scene for me. They said, okay, go. I said, do you have a script? They said, no, but the line is, what the hell? And I said, okay, that's great. He talks for 3 minutes. And they're like, yeah, the line is what the hell? And I'm like, so you want me to improvise? Like, no, you can't improvise. So just to show them that why that wouldn't work, they played the film and I just screamed, "What the hell?" for 3 minutes. And they stopped and said, "That's good, got it, let's move on." And they put it in the movie. So that's my involvement in Aapka Suroor, the movie, The Real Luv Story, with 2 E's in movie and 1 U in love.
Excellent.
Oh, man.
Do you have any video evidence of this surviving that you can access?
The whole movie's on YouTube.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
It is bad. I have not watched it since it came out like over a decade ago. I don't know if I can handle it. It's so bad.
If I can find the YouTube link, I'm putting that in the show notes along with your website, ryanestrada.com. And you can be assured that I will be viewing this film sometime in the next month. So, Soph, do you have any other questions?
No, I wish you could see my face. I'm practically in tears. Oh my goodness.
Before we get started with today's episode, just a few notes. First, as usual, there will be a spoiler-free section at the beginning of the episode, and we will warn you when the spoiler section starts.
We'd also like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom Com podcast and blog. Our Instagram is at Every Rom Com, and our Twitter handle is at Every RomCom pod.
And as always, you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com. Send us feedback at everyromcom.com. And if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And now we will listen to a little bit of the trailer for Jerry Maguire.
I want everybody to see you for what you are. The best kept secret in the NFL. You are the man. You ready? Yep. Let's go. Let's walk. My name is Jerry Maguire. I'm a sports agent. You could say I'm at the top of my game, but something just isn't right.
Jerry Maguire!
What can I do for you, Rod?
Show me the money. You know what I'm saying? Show me the money! Money!
Can you sign my card?
Sorry, little fella. I can't sign this brand of card. Only Pro Jam Blue Dot cards.
And lately, it's getting worse.
Came here to let you go.
Pardon me?
I came here to fire you, Jerry.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what you all think I'm gonna do, which is just flip out! Who's coming with me? Who is coming with me?
I will go with you.
Dorothy Boyd, thank you. We're gonna be okay, because I am gonna take my one client, and we're gonna go all the way. Help me, Rod. Help me help you. Help me help you.
You are hanging on by a very thin thread. And I dig that about you.
You wanna go out to dinner?
Some dudes might have the coin, but they'll never have the quan.
Quan?
It means love.
Wish me luck. Whoa, hey!
That is the first time I have ever seen him kiss a man, just like a dad.
Don't cry at the beginning of a date. Yeah, just cry at the end like I do.
So we leave on those immortal words of Bonnie Hunt because the rest of the trailer is basically all the song and visuals. So it's a decent trailer.
Yeah. So that was our trailer to Jerry Maguire, which came out in 1996, written and directed by Cameron Crowe, starring Tom Cruise, Renee Zellweger, and Cuba Gooding Jr.
So basic premise of the film is that Jerry Maguire is a sports agent who gets sick of the lack of humanity and excessive materialism in his industry, eats 2 slices of bad pizza, goes to bed, and grows a conscience, and writes a mission statement, which he sends out to his company. There's also an accountant named Dorothy, who's a single mother, and she kind of admires the mission statement that he wrote. And kind of has a crush on him. So when he gets fired, and he, as you heard in the trailer, dramatically asks everyone to come with him, she is the only person that agrees, and it's kind of awkward. Jerry's only able to keep 2 clients, a rising football star named Cushman and a wide receiver with a chip on his shoulder named Rod Tidwell. And as both Jerry and Dorothy struggle to keep their new company afloat, a relationship develops between them. But will they be able to keep their relationship and their company together?
So here's some interesting facts about the movie. So firstly, Cameron Crowe worked closely with the producer James L. Brooks to develop the story and script for this movie for almost 5 years, which I was not aware of until I started looking into like the commentary and the special features. So he was also an integral part of the development. He had also initially sparked the idea for the film by showing Cameron Crowe a picture of a player with his sports agent and kind of encouraging Cameron Crowe to think about what that relationship might be like. And that, caused Cameron Crowe to actually do the research for the film. To do the research for the film, he shadowed a sports agent named Lee Steinberg for 18 months. And Steinberg had later claimed that the character is based on him, but Cameron Crowe says it's actually just a pure fictional creation. It's based on a lot of different people, including like Hollywood agents, so not even just the sports world. And another inspiration for the structure of the story, which I found really interesting, was a mission statement that Jeffrey Katzenberg wrote about the film industry in 1991 when he was head of Disney. And I'm going to read an excerpt from that because I thought, like, it was true in 1991. It's even more true today, maybe. This is what he had to say about the film industry in his mission statement. Back in 1984, our initial success at Disney was based on the ability to tell good stories well. Big stars, special effects, and name directors were of little importance. Of course, we started this way out of necessity. We had small budgets and not much respect, so we substituted dollars with creativity and big stars with talent we believed in. Success ensued. With success came bigger budgets and bigger names. We found ourselves attracting the caliber of talent with which event movies could be made. And more we began making them. The result, costs have escalated, profitability has slipped, and our level of risk has compounded. The time has come to get back to our roots. So that was Jeffrey Katzenberg's mission statement. And it inspired, the part in the movie where Jerry is having a similar feelings about his industry. Another inspiration for the film for Cameron Crowe, or his theme, he said, quote, "I really wanted to get across this idea that when you were really down, you're surprised at who's there and who isn't. Often the people you really believed would always be there for you if you were down, 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 are not there. But somebody else shows up that you didn't expect with loyalty towards you. And that becomes your life and the way you look at the world." And I think we'll definitely see that play out as we talk about the film. And another theme was, you can learn about success through failure. So yeah, I like all the ideas that spawned this movie. And the movie was made for a budget of $50 million and ended up grossing $273 million. So yeah, it's a good gross. But like,
Indeed.
The budget is pretty high too. Like we did so many small budget movies this year that these big budgets, like, they're not like huge, but they're still big enough to like be like, wow, like you could have made 50 of these other movies. And Jerry Maguire ended up winning one Oscar for Cuba Gooding Jr. for Best Supporting Actor, but it was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Tom Cruise was nominated for Best Actor. So let's talk a little bit about our general opinion of the movie. First of all, Ryan, I want to ask you, because like way back in the day when I was starting my podcast, like I don't even know if I reached out to you or if you actually reached out to me first and said that you would be interested to do Jerry Maguire. And I was intrigued by that when you mentioned it. I was like, oh, I wonder why Jerry Maguire? Why is that the movie?
Well, that's one of the reasons I want to talk about it, is because I want to know why I like this movie so much. Because on paper, there's no reason I should. There's not a single other Cameron Crowe movie that I particularly like. Tom Cruise kind of creeps me out. I have zero interest in sports or football, and I don't even find the romantic relationship in the movie particularly good. But I love this movie so much. I think it's just so well written and tightly put together and well edited, and just like everything about it, every scene feels like you're on the edge of your seat. Because you mentioned at the beginning how you thought he was less developed, but I think it's just that Jerry Maguire and everyone in his world is so unknowable that you never quite know what they're thinking, and they'll say something like, oh, what was he looking at in this direction? But then like Dorothy Boyd and her family, they're the ones, like, they always say what's on their mind. They always say the truth. And like their scenes are edited so much slower that like it makes you feel like he's in this unknowable world, and like and there's this other world. I just love everything about it. I love every quotable scene. And I'm just trying to figure out what it is that makes this movie so good.
All right, we'll see if we get to it by the end of the podcast. That was a pretty darn
good explanation right there. I'm like, oh, yeah. So, yeah.
And Soph, how about you? When did you first see the movie? What's your opinion of it?
I'm sure I saw it early, around the time it came out, either seeing it. I don't remember seeing it in the theaters, but that doesn't mean I didn't, and definitely rented it a bunch of times and thought it was great, but I was only like, 18. So what did I know about anything that they were talking about? But I was like, that's how grown-ups live. I don't know. But I really enjoyed it this time as well. Certain things, they mean differently to me now, being, a grown up with like a family and stuff. And it was still great.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like I think I must not have seen this movie since before High Fidelity came out at any rate, because I'll talk about this observation about that relates to High Fidelity later.
Okay.
But I think I must not have seen this movie since the 90s. I remember really liking it. I must have seen it in the theater too, and I remember liking it in the theater and like thinking the romance was actually like the important part of the movie,
Right.
and being really into that.
Uh-huh.
And then now when I watch it now, I think the romance to me works less well than anything else in the movie.
Uh-huh.
But I was really interested in other things, and I was really interested in the relationship between Rod Tidwell and his wife.
Mhm.
And the kid is cute. The kid will always be cute.
Yep.
The most ridiculously cute kid in cinema. And I agree with Ryan, like when I was like really trying to pick the movie apart a little more, like it is very seamlessly put together. Like the structure is like very tight, and Cameron Crowe manages to interweave all these different people's lives. Like it's perfection. There isn't really a scene, a frame out of place. I can't say it's like one of my favorite movies, but I can see how it's put together well. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. Well, we know Ryan doesn't like football. Jen, cheesehead Packer fan.
No.
You're on the Lambeau.
I've never cared about football ever in my life. I was the person who my whole family was watching the football game, and I'd be like out taking a walk in a deserted Wisconsin street while everybody else was like inside. So
yeah. With any sport, I don't sit down and watch one, but like I like a live match.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd go to a football game. Somebody could maybe take you to a game.
Yeah, somebody could take me to a game. Yeah.
And did you understand the football references in the movie? Because for me, I'm just watching. I know that guy has to go in that general direction. And I know a touchdown is good, but that's my level of knowledge.
That's about it. And football is actually complicated. It's not just like, get the ball and run.
Watching this movie kind of reminds me of another show that I love inexplicably, Sports Night. That's a great show, and they're constantly talking about sports. But for me, it's just like, it's important because it's a thing that the characters are passionate about, and I don't need to understand it. It's kind of like when you watch like Lord of the Rings. I don't know what any of the words they're using mean. I don't know all it's just that's just a thing that exists in this world. Sure, I don't know if this is a reference they made up for the show or if this is a real thing in the world. It's just a sports thing. They care about it. Sure.
All right, so we're going to get into the cast and crew now. I think, Sophia, you're going to tell us about Cameron Crowe, yes?
Oh, I'm excited to tell you about Cameron Crowe because he's really awesome. He is a writer and director and began his career in the 70s as the youngest writer published by Rolling Stone. Almost Famous is a story about his early life, and eventually he became an associate editor at Rolling Stone. His Hollywood breakout was writing the book and the screenplay for Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The book was in 1981 and the film was 1982. Other prominent work pre-Jerry Maguire, he wrote and directed Say Anything in 1989 and Singles in 1992. Awesome films. And after Jerry Maguire, he wrote and directed Almost Famous in 2000, for which he won the Oscar for original screenplay. Vanilla Sky came out in 2001, also starring Tom Cruise. Elizabethtown, 2005. We Bought a Zoo in 2011. Aloha came out in 2015. And the TV show Roadies came out in 2016. And what other Cameron Crowe films have you all seen or like, if any?
I love Almost Famous. I do. Like, I loved it more when it first came out. Like, it doesn't mean as much to me now that I'm older, but I still really like that one. I do not like Say Anything, though, despite really liking John Cusack and thinking some of the dialogue is good. But I just never felt invested in that movie. And Singles, I think I would like to watch Singles again, but I remember it being kind of in an average range for me. Ryan, you said you don't like any other Cameron Crowe?
As a teenager, I remember like being so into Jerry Maguire that I'm like, I'm a Cameron Crowe fan. And every time I saw another movie, I'm like, I'm not into this one. I'm not into this one. And like only recently, like looking back at all his movies, I'm like, I didn't like any of these except Jerry Maguire.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit about Tom Cruise. It is amazing to me that I looked at IMDb and he only has 50 acting credits on IMDb, because I feel like he's been in everything, but it's actually just the case that almost everything he does has been wildly successful. There are people like with 87, 100 and some acting credits. I don't know as many of their films. So it just feels like Tom Cruise is more prolific than he's actually been. His feature debut was just a supporting role in Endless Love in 1981. And then his breakout was Risky Business in 1983. Some of the other stuff he did pre-Jerry Maguire, Top Gun, of course, in 1986, Rain Man, 1988, Born on the 4th of July, 1989, A Few Good Men, 1992, Interview with the Vampire, 1994, and the first Mission Impossible was also in 1996, the same year as Jerry Maguire. So right there, that's like a film career on its own.
Right. Wow.
And then, and I'm leaving things out that I like too out of that list. And then after Jerry Maguire, he did Eyes Wide Shut. I think immediately after Jerry Maguire was Eyes Wide Shut. And then Magnolia in 1999. He was in Vanilla Sky, as we mentioned, Minority Report, all the Mission Impossible sequels, War of the Worlds, Jack Reacher. I haven't seen any of those. And then he's also been in Edge of Tomorrow. And I'm also mentioning The Mummy, not because I think it was probably very good, but apparently it had a really high gross. So somebody liked The Mummy. And then coming up, he's got Top Gun Maverick, which I don't know how I feel about that, even though I really like Top Gun. And Mission Impossible 7 and 8 are both in the works. And an Edge of Tomorrow sequel, which I would be keen to watch that. And so you guys, neither of you sound very into Tom Cruise. Like, do you have any Tom Cruise roles that you've liked besides this? Like, things that you've enjoyed watching him in?
Well, I love Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow is kind of like a action Groundhog Day movie that the Tom Cruise does really well in, because they kind of like break down his movie star persona and like make him look cool, but then like the audience gets to realize like, oh, this guy can't actually do anything, but he has to learn how to do it by looping through this alien battle. It was really fun.
Yeah. Anything you like, Soph?
I just feel like the early stuff, golly, the Top Gun and the Rain Man, and I like that first Mission Impossible. I will say I have seen a preview for Top Gun Maverick, and it looked really cool.
Well, I'm gonna put in that even though I don't like, at least on a conscious level, I don't find Tom Cruise attractive, but I do find him charismatic, and like I like watching his movies. And I would say I'm a Tom Cruise fan, even though I'm not like hardcore into him. But like I expect that he's gonna do good work. I am a sucker for Far and Away, the Irish story he did with Nicole Kidman. Sucker for that one. His work in Magnolia is very impressive. I thought he was good in Eyes Wide Shut. My husband would be upset if I didn't mention his very small role in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, I was totally going to say that. Yes.
And I think he's a very good action star, even though I'm never going to watch the Mission Impossible movies because I'm just not into that genre particularly. But yeah, anyway, Tom Cruise, everybody.
Let's move on to Renee Zellweger. Before she was in Jerry Maguire, she had just very much smaller roles in bigger movies like Reality Bites, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, The Whole Wide World, Empire Records. When she auditioned, here's a story that I heard on the Blank Check podcast, if you want the inside scoop about how this audition went. So basically, when you go up for a big movie like this, especially if you're an unknown actor, you do multiple auditions, right?
Yeah.
So she had done one audition. Her agents kind of told her it went okay, but they're not sure you have any chemistry with Tom Cruise. And so they called her back for another audition, and she got in her head about it, was a little bit nervous. She went, and this audition was with Tom Cruise. So she did the scene they asked her to do in front of Cameron Crowe, and they thanked her. She walked out. She's in the hallway, and she's like, I don't know if that went well. I don't think I got the job. And she remembered what her agent told her about. They didn't think she had chemistry. So someone else is supposed to be going for the next audition, but she burst back in the room, opened the door, ran up to Tom Cruise, swooped him off his feet and made out with him, and then said thank you and walked back out again.
Really?
And apparently that's what she did. And they're like, all right, she's got the job. She has the chemistry.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you send me a link to that podcast so I can put that in the show notes too? Thank you.
I will. So obviously she got a lot of attention for Jerry Maguire. It was a big breakout. But she couldn't really find another breakout role to match it for a few years. She did stuff like Nurse Betty, Me, Myself, and Irene. And her next role she's biggest known for came in 2001, where she did Bridget Jones's Diary. Did 2 sequels to that eventually. Did films like Chicago, Down with Love, Cold Mountain, in which she won Best Supporting Actress. Miss Potter and New in Town. And most recently, She won Best Actress for Judy in 2019. Coming up, she has a TV series called The Thing About Pam and a movie called The Back Nine.
So are you guys Zellweger fans? Do you like any of her stuff?
I love this movie and I'm a fan of her in it. I think she's an amazing actress, but I don't think she's been in any other roles that really grabbed me in that same way.
Same for you, Sopher.
Well, I love Empire Records, so that's, she's in that one. I don't really care for the Bridget Jones's films. I feel like I'm, the odd woman out on that one.
Oh, that'll be interesting to do that someday.
What was that?
That'll be interesting if we podcast on that someday.
Sure, I'll do it for that. I did love Chicago, and I loved her in it. And I've yet to see Judy, even though she looks flawless in it. I'm not like a anti, but I don't think I have a film in my collection with her in it, except for Empire Records. So,
well, I'm going to put in a big plug for Cold Mountain. I think I love that movie, and I love her in it. And I guess, interestingly enough, Nicole Kidman used to be married to Tom Cruise, and she's in that with Nicole Kidman. So there you go. I don't know. She's starred with both of them in things. All right.
Like that.
And now we're going to go on to Cuba Gooding Jr., and he plays in the movie Rod Tidwell, who is the client that is most loyal to Jerry Maguire. Now, I found out a really disturbing thing about Cuba Gooding Jr. just today, so I'm going to put that up front. No, I won't put it up front, but I'm going to report on it as we talk about it, okay? So if I sound less enthusiastic than usual about Cuba Gooding Jr., you will soon know why. Mm-hmm. So Cuba Gooding Jr., his first IMDb credit was for TV when he was about 18, and his feature debut is actually Boy Getting a Haircut in Coming to America. So that's pretty good. And then his breakout role was in 1991 as the lead role in Boys in the Hood, and I remember seeing that movie and being very affected by it when it came out. So that was he was on my radar before Jerry Maguire for sure. A few other movies before Jerry Maguire were A Few Good Men, Outbreak, Losing Isaiah, and a TV movie, The Tuskegee Airmen. And then, of course, we know he won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Jerry Maguire. I think well-deserved. Mm-hmm. And then after Jerry Maguire, he did a lot of other work, but I don't think anything that was as prominent, really. He did roles in As Good as It Gets, What Dreams May Come, The Fighting Temptations, Daddy Day Camp. He was in a rom-com called What Love Is, actually. I've never heard of it, but it looked interesting. In 2009, oddly enough, he played Ben Carson in Gifted Hands, The Ben Carson Story, well before Ben Carson had presidential ambitions.
I saw that movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. It was not bad. I don't know. Yeah.
He was also in Red Tails, and he played O.J. Simpson in the TV series American Crime Story, and he was in season 6 of American Horror Story Roanoke. And then most recently, he wrote and directed and starred in a movie called Bayou Caviar, which is a crime thriller in 2018. And he appeared in 2020's Life in a Year. And now I'm going to tell you the sad thing, okay? I found out this morning, I was just researching the people for the movie, and I found out he's been accused of rape in 2013. He was accused of rape, and he's been accused of groping by 3 women have put charges against him, but there's been other women who've come forward and said they were groped by him too. And he's got a trial coming up for the groping charges in 2022. And he's been involved in a civil trial about the rape charge. That still seems to be ongoing as well. So it makes me sad.
Disappointing, I know.
It makes me sad. I can still watch movies with actors. I know some people can't, though. I can still watch and enjoy movies with actors who have been accused of things and committed things, but it does leave a little hole in my gut sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes it difficult to, endear yourself to a character knowing that person's done something like that. And it's the kind of thing people always talk about, what do you do with those movies? And I think that, it doesn't mean you should never watch Jerry Maguire again, but should you support his projects in the future? Because you don't want to put someone like that in a position of power again. You don't want to support them. Take away safety from others by putting him back on a set. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm also like, I do tend to be one of those people who's like, who abides by innocent until proven guilty. But for me, it's like when you have so many people making charges against you, that makes it more difficult for me to feel that way. You know what I mean? Like if it's one person making an accusation, I'm sometimes willing to be like, well, have a trial happen. But if it's like 3 people with official charges, another person with official rape charge, and then like 20 some people who came forward and said this happened to me too, I'm like, too much.
Yeah.
If you were unaware of this, listeners, and we told you this and ruined Jerry Maguire for you, I'm very sorry, but it's not on us. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get to introduce the cutest cast member, Ryan.
All right. Let's move on to something more adorable. Let's talk about Jonathan Lipnicki, who of course played Ray, a little kid, just a little big-headed, weird-looking kid. He's just so cute.
It's so cute.
So apparently he'd only been in a McDonald's commercial before he was in this movie. You got to imagine something like where like Cameron Crowe is watching TV and just this weird-headed kid appears and he's like, "Yep, get him, find him, bring him to me, bring him to me before his head grows the proper shape." Like it's just those little glasses, and his little grin. He's so cute. So he's apparently said his favorite actor was Tom Cruise. He loved Top Gun, so he was excited to be in the movie. And from here, he went on to have 56 credits on IMDb. So he's still working. He worked on things like The Jeff Foxworthy Show, the Stuart Little movies, The Little Vampire as a child star. And now that he's gotten older, he's done a lot more indie movies and TV shows. I was scrolling through trying to find anything I recognized. I didn't recognize any of it. Yeah. But he's most recently he did Pooling to Paradise. His film coming up, a comedy called The Re-Education of Molly Singer. And he also in 2014 co-wrote a short where he stars as himself called You Used to Be Cute. It kind of shows what his experience is like as an actor now that everyone thinks they know him and they all just think of him as the kid from Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, I thought that was such a cute, like not cute. I thought that was such a cool little movie, though. I think I'm going to share it at some point on my social media, too, just to show people. Because it's like a very short, it's like only 4 minutes long. I'll put it in the show notes. You got to check it out. Really funny, I thought. And especially if you're an actor.
Ryan basically said all the reasons that I think he's so cute. It's his little round glasses and that cute little smile and this little lisp. And like working with children who are like 3, 4, and 5, they can be that funny and smart and clever and just ridiculously charming, and that's why I love them. They can also be, a meltdown mess, but just they're sweet. And when they give when the scene when he hugs Jerry, and you're like, it's the most sweetest thing ever. And my favorite character in the whole film is played by Bonnie Hunt. And that character is Laurel Boyd, Dorothy's sister. She co-wrote and directed and acted in one of my favorite films, Return to Me. She's played similar supportive character in Only You, another one I love. And she's done a lot of TV and film, including having her own fictional show and a recent talk show. And then there's Regina King. She plays Marcee Tidwell, Rod's wife. Most recently known for her role in Watchmen and directed One Night in Miami. And for more information about her, see our episode 10 and How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Jay Moore plays Bob Sugar. He's the rival sports agent. He's continued to act, but all of his top IMDb credits are from the late 90s and early 2000s, including Go and Suicide Kings.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something that Leah and I freaked out about when we rewatched Jerry Maguire this time, which is the actor Todd Luiso, who plays Chad the Nanny. And Chad the Nanny, we're going to find out, is a little bit into music. And the funny thing about this is he plays a very similar character in High Fidelity. He plays Dick, who works in the record store. And they have different mannerisms for sure, but they're both like these really knowledgeable music aficionados. And that's like the essence of their character. So we freaked out and we're like, now we need to go and watch High Fidelity right away. And that's why I think I probably haven't watched Jerry Maguire since, before High Fidelity came out. But I've found out another thing about Todd Luiso. He's done other acting, but he's also directed. And Sophia, he directed Hello, I Must Be Going, that you have recommended on one of our episodes before.
And so I didn't realize that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other, like, this whole movie is just full of like famous actors, especially if you are a 90s movie fan. You've got Eric Stoltz just randomly there, Kelly Preston, Jerry O'Connell, Donald Logue, and then Lucy Liu is in the credits, but I think she, like Ryan had mentioned, she probably got cut out of this like bachelor video of Jerry's ex-girlfriends. So yeah. Anyway, it's like just chock-a-block of famous people in this movie. And there's random Music World people show up in this movie because of Cameron Crowe's Music World connections from Rolling Stone. Jan Wenner, the co-founder of Rolling Stone, plays the head of Jerry's agency. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains plays the Kinko's employee who helps Jerry make copies of his mission statement. And Glenn Frey from the Eagles plays the Cardinals general manager of Rod Tidwell's team. And then I could go, I don't know enough about the sports world to really unpack all the sports world cameos. I'm sorry, sports fans. But I did recognize Frank Gifford, who's a former player and sports commentator. Journalist Roy Firestone plays an important role, and Troy Aikman shows up, who's a football player. That's all I know about Troy Aikman. So football fans sue us. Like we don't know. All right, we're finally getting into the movie. Okay, so one thing that I learned about this movie while researching about it was that Cameron Crowe was a big fan of The Apartment, written and directed by Billy Wilder, particularly during the time he was working on Jerry Maguire. And so I went and watched The Apartment to try to figure out, what's the associations here. He had wanted to cast Renee Zellweger's character of Dorothy based on the main character played by Shirley MacLaine in that movie, who plays a woman named Fran Kubelik, who's an elevator operator and a love interest in the movie. Frankly, I don't really see the connection between Renee Zellweger and Shirley MacLaine's characters, but apparently once Shirley MacLaine went to a viewing of Jerry Maguire and said she did, so what do I know? But I did notice one connection to The Apartment, which is that both movies open with narration from the main male character, and the narration specifically mentions what the population is. And in Jerry's case, it's the world. I think in The Apartment, it's just the city of New York. And both go from this long shot far out into the office of the person that we're talking about. So I did notice that connection immediately. And Jerry Maguire also opens with, we talked about this in Twister, the classic shot of the Earth from space with a satellite going by. Mm-hmm. Remember when we were talking about Twister and I was like, that's a 90s thing. Yeah. There you are. I'm proven right again. Anyway. So there's a connection to The Apartment and an unintended connection to Twister right at the beginning of this movie. And the whole beginning, like I mentioned, is done in narration. Narration sometimes gets a bad rap, but I think it actually works really well in this movie. Maybe it just works better if you have a good writer. What do you guys think about the narration strategy?
Yeah, I think what I love about this whole sequence is how much subliminally it's telling you about the character. Like what Jerry's saying in the narration isn't really telling you, it's telling you what he thinks about himself, but then what I love about the sequence is how fast it is. Like when you're making a movie, every single background, every single actor, every single time you have to set up a camera is so much money. But they'll introduce a character in a setting and put it on screen for 1.5 seconds. Here, let me tell you about this guy. Okay, we're done with him. And it kind of shows you that's what Jerry Maguire's world is like. He's moving fast. He has 1 second to think about this person and then we'll never hear about them again. And it's just kind of it. That's what I love about this is that it's just cycling through and kind of putting you into his world very quickly.
Yeah. And his world includes this montage of these different sports players and he gives statistics about them. And meanwhile, he's telling you about what is the job of the agent? What do they do? And what does a sports agent do to help the players? And in the montage would show you that he does a lot of shaking hands and talking fast, I think, is what I got out of the montage. Yeah, and you're right, Ryan. It does kind of cycle through people that we don't see again. We do see Cushman again, but a lot of people are just flash and they're gone. So I wanted to structure kind of the rest of the podcast around the Dickie Fox quotes. Dickie Fox is introduced as Jerry's mentor in the film, and it's just this older guy who shows up in an office occasionally, and you just see a clip of him giving his words of wisdom. And it's such an out of place thing, but it works perfectly in my opinion. You guys a fan of Dickie Fox?
Yes.
Yeah, I love those scenes, and apparently Cameron Crowe really wanted Gene Wilder to play that part.
Oh
'cause that
no,
was
Billy
his-
Wilder. Billy
Billy
Wilder.
Wilder. Okay, sorry.
The director, the writer-director of The
Okay.
Apartment.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole story about that in the commentary track, actually. Where he went to Billy Wilder's house with Tom Cruise, and he said that that Billy Wilder, instead of agreeing to be in the movie, was actually trying to like poach Tom Cruise and get him interested in doing a movie with him. Like he's still trying to direct things.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. According to Cameron Crowe in the commentary track, anyway. Yeah, and then like apparently when Billy Wilder later saw the movie after refusing to do the role, he said, "Who's that guy you got to play my role?" Like,
Funny.
yeah. So I wanted to use the Dickie Fox quotes to kind of structure us, but like I'm going to read them kind of out of order because like they're kind of punctuating a lot of times the end of a bunch of action. But now in this podcast, they're going to act as kind of foreshadowing. So the first Dickie Fox quote is, "The key to this business is personal relationships." This is something that comes up when Jerry Maguire becomes disenchanted with the sports agent world very early on in this narration. Like this movie starts with him being disenchanted and having a major change of heart in his life. This takes place over 3 incidents. One of them, he's covering for statutory rape by a player, maybe actual rape. I don't know. Like there's just this like tiny blink and you miss it thing where a reporter's yelling at one of his clients, "Was she 16 or 17?" And Jerry Maguire says there's no proof of anything, but that he is a great player or something like that. And I'm like, that one hit a little differently in 2021, let me tell you. That one's given actually the least time. Like there's more time given to this player who refuses to sign a baseball card from the wrong brand. And then the one that really gets Jerry is he goes to a hospital and there's an injured hockey player. Apparently it's his 4th concussion. And Jerry interacts with his son. And the son is like, can't somebody get my dad to stop playing? And Jerry's like, what did he say? Like it would take he makes some weird reference. Like it would take a super
It would
trooper.
take all 4 super trooper VR warriors to stop your dad.
Oh, wow. You got that one. And the kid just sits there for a minute like, who is this like fucking guy who's like also on his pager at the same time when he's saying this, like not even paying full attention to the kid. And the kid goes, "Fuck you." And that's what gets Jerry. He's just like, he something has to change. He like Ryan mentioned, he has 2 pieces of bad pizza and he kind of has a breakdown.
All right, so next up is when Jerry decides to write the mission statement. And apparently Cameron Crowe actually wrote this statement. It's a real thing. And basically he just kind of says that things need to change in the industry. We need fewer clients. We need to focus on less. We need less money. And he just runs out to Kinko's in the middle of the night, prints them, puts in everybody's mailbox, and then really regrets it the next day. And just kind of everyone reads it, everyone applauds, but they're like, yeah, he's going to be gone in a week. And
I thought that was an interesting contrast where they had the people like on the face of it, they're approving of him, but then behind his back, they're thinking completely another thing. I also wanted to say I like the title of it, "The Things We Think and Do Not Say." Like it's a little full of itself, but it seems exactly like what you would title a mission statement you wrote at 2 a.m.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember having that moment in my career because I was a full-time artist for 10 years the last time I was in it. And that was always my dream to be a full-time artist, but I did that by doing custom comics for strangers and drawing stuff for weddings and trade shows and basically not doing any creative work and just doing work for money. And I remember like after 10 years being like, I'm living my dream, but I hate it. I can't make anything creative. I've lost my ability to make things I'm passionate about. And I remember the moment, I was working for myself, so there's no one I could write a mission statement to other than to say to myself, I need to quit. And I just shut down the business and said, I'm only going to make work that I'm passionate about. And so it took another 10 years before I could figure out how to make a dime at it. But I just needed to do that. So I can kind of feel that moment where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're going to go on to the next Dickie Fox quote, which will come up later in the movie, but this is going to foreshadow what happens next. "Roll with the punches. Tomorrow's another day." So this is foreshadowing what's about to happen in Jerry Maguire's life. But first, we're going to be introduced a little bit to Dorothy. As we mentioned, she's an accountant with the company, and she first appears in that background where everybody's applauding Jerry for the mission statement, but talking behind his back. But then she's featured, like introduced kind of officially on the plane home from the conference. She's in coach with her son, Ray, the little cute kid, who is vomiting into a barf bag, and even that he somehow does cutely. Aww. And Dorothy is meanwhile eavesdropping on Jerry, talking about how he proposed to his fiance up in first class. Like, I don't think you'd be able to eavesdrop that far into first class, personally.
No, you can't.
maybe that's picky of me. I don't know. And the proposal story, Jerry's proposal story to his fiance Avery, seemed very unromantic to me. But Dorothy's hanging on every word. When do you guys think Dorothy actually became attracted to Jerry?
Like, I think he's probably been her office crush for long before this movie started.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah. I think you could argue that the mission statement like propelled it too, because she keeps talking about how much it inspired her. But like, it just, to be that interested in this guy, it just seems like there had to be something more going on.
So Dorothy has been eavesdropping on Jerry's proposal in first class, and now the plane has landed, and they're at the baggage claim, and Jerry helps Dorothy find Ray.
And where do we find Ray?
Well, we find Ray on the baggage carousel,
and he's just like waving at everybody. He's just like super happy. Like, that kid is always happy looking.
Cute. So cute. And so as Jerry and Dorothy are talking, Ray starts to, he has taken both of their hands and he starts swinging himself, and they're like, talking, and Jerry's like, what's kind of going on around here? And I thought that was cute that she asked him, is this okay with you, or is this bothering you? And he played it cool. And doesn't he ask her if she needs a ride as well?
Yeah, he asked her if she needs a ride,
yeah.
So I think he's being polite, though, and I think the reason he knows her name is just because he probably knows like you said, networking. He probably knows every single person's name at that company, and possibly some of the people at the other companies too. So
right,
yeah. And then Dorothy gets home, and she's like at home with her sister Laurel. She's just, I don't remember what she actually talked to Laurel about, but the important thing is she speculates that Jerry's fiance must be a very classy lady. Right. And then we do a cut to this like very like I don't know how to describe this sex scene. Very fast and kind of like, I think it's kind of realistic actually. And Jerry's fiance Avery sings like somewhat dirty stuff, I guess, but like not out of place in a sex scene and in real life. And I think it's meant to make Avery kind of seem ridiculous, but in a way it's a little slut shamey to me, because she seems kind of normal for somebody who's in the middle of having sex. I don't know. Takes on Avery, anybody?
I think it's just meant to seem very performative.
I see.
Both of them seem like they're acting in that scene. Like they're not truly being intimate with one another. They're like, she's like doing a performance, it seems like.
I can see that. I can see definitely there's an aspect where it could be like more of a performance, but I could also see that being just like the way she is. I don't know, like very, like she's definitely different than Dorothy though. They're definitely contrasted as like Avery's very loud and brash, whereas Dorothy's very unassuming and kind of quiet and maybe more genuine, I guess. But I don't know. Avery's always pretty straight up in this movie about who she is and what she wants. And I think that watching it this time, I really noticed that like, you're not really meant to like her per se, but like, I don't really think there's anything wrong with her being her at the same time. Anyway. And there's also a bachelor party scene where the main thing we're supposed to get out of this bachelor party scene is there's a video that I think Avery must have helped make with all these Jerry's ex-girlfriends talking about he can't be alone. He can't be alone. He can't be intimate. Like, and then saying I love you in a way that is showing that this is how Jerry says I love you. Like he's performing it. He doesn't mean it or something. I think that's the biggest glimpse we get of Jerry's like into his relationship character.
Because while he can be good, be like a good businessman and agent, and be like, no, maybe his secretary's kid's name or something. Oh, tell him I said happy birthday. That kind of thing. It's very schmoozy. To pretend like he cares about you, but when it comes to like being in a real relationship, he can't actually do it. I think that's what we're seeing there. And it's just another nail in his coffin of like, what's become of my life? I don't know. He doesn't seem happy about it.
No, he doesn't. He's not laughing with it, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So back at work where Jerry is most comfortable, we meet Marcee, who is the wife of one of Jerry's players, Rod Tidwell. And that's where he's introduced. And Marcee is advocating for better contract and endorsements for Rod. And I love what she goes, I know the 4 jewels of celebrity endorsement: shoe, car, clothing line, soft drink.
Yeah. They both and she said they both majored in marketing, which I like that too. Cause like some people might think of sports players as just like, that's all they do, or their wives is like, you know, just the wife, but they like, these are real people who are smart people. They know what they're doing. And
this is the scene that's always confused me, because he's in his office talking to Marcee and her son. Then, like, you know, the Bob Sugar pops his head in the office and like, we on for lunch after this? Sure. Goes to lunch, comes back. And then when he calls Rod is at home with his wife and son. Like, weren't they just in his office? Don't they live in different states?
That's true.
Oh, good.
Wait. There's a line that says Marcee's late for her flight, or going to be late for her flight.
Okay.
You're late to the meeting.
Right.
So they put that in. They put that in to try to save that, I think.
Okay.
All right. I mean, still, it's a different state, I'm pretty sure.
But it's Arizona and California. And so, like, technically, like, if they'd been meeting right early in the morning and, like, lunch was late, I think you could make it. But yeah, well noticed, though. Well noticed. So actually, this lunch with Bob Sugar, played by Jay Moore, Bob Sugar takes Jerry to a restaurant and pretty much immediately fires Jerry. And it's over the mission statement. Like, you can't really say we want less money and fewer clients in this industry and keep your job, I guess. And this instigates this like calling race where Jerry and Bob Sugar are both rushing to call all the clients. And there's a great scene where Jerry's rushing into the office and actually trips. Apparently, like, Cameron Crowe told Tom Cruise to do that and didn't tell anybody else it was going to happen. So when everybody reacts to him tripping, that's like their real reaction. They thought Tom Cruise had tripped, maybe. And this phone race is wild because Jerry is like just desperately trying to get a hold of anyone. Bob Sugar's like one step ahead of him. And he's also got another guy played by Donald Logue who's like helping him. Like, he's passing the phone back and forth with this guy. He's talking to this guy for 1 second, then talk more to Nick or whatever, and then passes it back. I would not want Bob Sugar as my agent, though, judging from that scene. Like, I don't know how Bob Sugar actually keeps as many people as he does.
Yeah, he's a sleaze.
Yeah, he's like very obviously oily.
The thing is, they want someone oily behind them because they want someone that's going to go after, ruthlessly get them money.
I guess so. Yeah.
And the thing to note here is that Bob Sugar, like, Jerry Maguire mentored Bob Sugar, and he fires his mentor and like doesn't seem to care at all, and now is taking all of his clients and such. I
would say he's enjoying firing him. I don't think he just doesn't care. I think he enjoys it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so Jerry is able to get a hold of one client at a certain point, and it is Rod Tidwell. And Rod Tidwell, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., like, this conversation, this whole section, if it was good to clip all of it, I would do that, but that's not good for a podcast. But like, the whole conversation with Rod Tidwell is a work of art, I think. And you really just get like thrown into his character. And he's just talking to Jerry about he needs more personal attention. He needs to get these contracts. He needs to get these endorsements. And he's telling Jerry about all the problems in his house. And meanwhile, Jerry's like looking at his phone screen, lighting up with other calls that he could be taking. But because he's promised personal attention, he has to stay on the line with Rod Tidwell. And so this is the kind of the tail end of the conversation. And you will hear some famous dialogue towards the end. But here is a clip of Jerry on the phone with Rod Tidwell, desperately wishing he could talk to some other people too. And you'll hear Bob Sugar cutting in sometimes as well.
Hello, TV. Jerry, my house is falling apart. Nobody's looking out for Rod Tidwell. We don't know where we're going to live in a year. And I'm supposed to be a superstar, man.
Rod, I need a decision from you. Are you in or are you out?
And you're going to be so happy you stayed with Bob Sugar, because I am the fucking Terminator. I am a role model, Jerry. I have a family to support. Hear me? I want to stay in Arizona. I want my new contract. but I like you. Yes, I like you, Jerry. My wife likes you. You're good to my wife. I will stay with you.
That's great. I'm very happy.
Are you listening?
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna do for you. God bless you, Jerry. But this is what you're gonna do for me. You listen, Jerry?
Yeah, what can I do for you, Rod? You just tell me, what can I do for you?
It's a very personal, very important thing. Hell, it's a family matter. Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just wanna make sure you're ready, brother. Here it is. Show me the money. Jerry! Does that make you feel good just to say that? Say it with me one time, Jerry.
Show you the money.
Oh, no, you can do better than that, Jerry. I want you to say it with meaning, brother. Hey, I got Bob Sugar on the other line. I better hear you say it.
Yeah, no. Show you the money.
That's not so you. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Yeah. Louder.
Show me the money.
That's it, brother, but you got to yell that shit.
Show me the money.
I need to feel you, Jerry.
Show me the money.
Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money. Show me the money. Do you love this black man? I love this black man. Show me the money. I love black people. I love black people. Who's your motherfucker, Jerry? You my motherfucker. What you gonna do, Jerry? Show me the money. Congratulations, you're still my agent.
And that scene is so much better when you can see it too, because like Rod's at home with his brother and they're dancing and they're like enjoying this so much, and then Jerry's in the office and everyone's looking into his office like watching this man just yell his guts out in the middle of this quiet office. I love it. Love it.
It's really funny. That stood up. That lasted over the years.
So I love the way it cuts between Jerry all, sweaty and screaming, and Jay Moore just chilled out and relaxed. And I guess the way they did that is that they didn't script any of Jay Moore's stuff. They just handed him 2 phones and said, go. And he just improvised for 30 minutes. And apparently I've heard that on a DVD, you can watch him just go for 30 minutes. And they just cut all his like moments where he seemed really smooth and relaxed and just cut it in between Jerry screaming to get that balance.
Wow. That's impressive. That gives me a higher opinion of Jay Moore than I had before. Like, not that I didn't like Jay Moore, but wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
And so apparently the show me the money line is actually Cameron Crowe was doing research for the film, and he heard an actual football player named Tim McDonald saying that he needed his agent to show me the money. And like, apparently he said a chill went through him and he's like, that's a line. That's a resonant line. And he was right. Cause like, I think if anyone has not even seen Jerry Maguire, they've probably heard someone say, show me the money. Mm-hmm. And it's become kind of a cultural thing. And Crowe wanted to also say though, about McDonald and the character of Tidwell, he wanted to point out that this isn't necessarily saying that these people are greedy. Crowe says, quote, he's not greedy at all. He's just got a few more years left where he can get paid for what he does, end quote. And like, whereas I can't really imagine getting paid that much for work, like the way football players get paid, I can imagine that like the job itself is so dangerous and like has such a limited shelf life that like you only have a certain part of your life where you're going to make money at it. And then you might get injured and then your prospects after that might be lower. So it did make me think about it in a different way, like what that actually meant. So how do you guys feel about Rod Tidwell? Does that affect your opinion of him? Do you understand where he's coming from?
I mean, I still, every time I have a phone call with me and Hyunsuk have a phone call or agents, I still quote that scene before, not on the phone call, but beforehand. And I think that's just what agents do. Looking at my life before I had an agent after, like I remember the first time we got a deal through our agent, and I'm expecting something. I've worked in comics and as an author like since I was 6 years old, trying to get jobs, and then like expecting a little bit, and then the agent comes to me with something like more than everything I've ever made in comics put together, and I'm like, oh, that's what you do. All right, cool, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we come to the next part, which is another famous touchstone. The sequence where Jerry has gotten his one client for sure, and he's still trying to hold out for hope for Cushman as well. And Jerry makes his pitch to the office. Like, he goes out to the office and he does his like kind of parting speech. And he starts his parting speech by saying, like, I bet you were all expecting I was going to flip out. And he does like a crazy arm flipping out motion. And you're like, oh yes, you are flipping out. Like, it's like, he's saying that he's not flipping out. And meanwhile, he's flipping out. And then his next move is to take a goldfish, which really very odd. He says this goldfish is honest or something, and he's going to take the goldfish. And he says he's starting a new agency, and he asks, who's coming with me? And that it's such a great scene. Like, this scene is wonderful. Not even his secretary in the end will come with him. And I wanted to note his secretary is played by Nada Despotovich, who is also Chrissy in Moonstruck, Sophia. You know, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Who won't give Ronnie the big knife. Anyway.
Yeah. I knew she looked familiar. I'm like, she's somebody. And I'm like, just thrilled now. Yes.
And then Dorothy, though, eventually, after this has happened, after he's been humiliated, after he's taken this goldfish, after he has been rejected by his own secretary, nevertheless, Dorothy agrees to come with him. And he kind of gestures at her. And she's like, right now? And he's like, yeah. And so she leaves with him. And one thing I wanted to note about this scene, too, is that I love The Office. I'm a big fan of The Office. And this was used, The Office paid homage to this whole sequence in season 5, episode 21, 2 weeks, when Michael Scott quits The Office. And then Pam, the secretary, is the only person who agrees to leave with him. I love the original and I love the homage kind of equally. Have you guys seen that homage, or like, am I the only Office geek?
I think I've seen it. I don't remember it that well. I remember this scene was also homaged in the movie Half Baked. They did a big recreation of that scene at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah, this is a very cultural. This is another scene that people just know. They know this one. So
it's one of those ones. Again, it's one of those ones you can't like leave a job without thinking about. Even if you don't quote it, you think about it.
So, yeah, after Dorothy agrees to come with him, we get another all-time greatest hit from this movie. They're in the elevator together on the way out of the building, and a deaf couple is talking to each other in sign language, and then they kiss. And then Jerry wonders, what are they talking about? And Dorothy knows sign language, so she says, the man just said to her, you complete me. And you kind of just get this look on Jerry's face like he's mystified about what that might mean. And this is, you complete me, as we know, is a thing that will come up again, and another cultural touchstone. So do you think in Dorothy's position, you would leave with Jerry, or why not?
I think Jerry kind of knows when he does, like, immediately after, he's like, that was not a plan. I did not have any plan. I was just making a scene. Like that moment where she says, do you have health care? And he's like, sure. I don't know. Because like the thing to do would be like, hey, I'm going to start a company. I'll let you know when I have a company. And, then you can put in your 2 weeks notice and not burn bridges just in case this doesn't work out. He really did not have a plan there, and she really should not have gone with him.
Yeah, 100%. I would have answered the way his secretary did. I'm going to get that raise in a couple weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it, like, in my 20s, like early 20s, I might have been tempted. But now, no, I wouldn't go. Like, you have to think about healthcare. And Sophia, you have to think about your family, obviously. And like, and like, as you get older, you have more expenses. And so it's quite remarkable that Dorothy would go with him. Must be a hell of a mission statement.
I mean, his company doesn't even have a name. Even by the end of the movie, his company doesn't have a name. He hasn't gotten that far in building a company yet.
That's right. At least Michael Scott had Michael Scott Paper Company on The Office. So not very original, but hey, what do you know? One thing I wanted to mention right while we're here is the structure of the film. So what Cameron Crowe wanted to point out that this movie begins where a lot of movies get to at about the 3/4 point. This begins at the all hope is lost moment, like at somebody's descent. And in the commentary, you also mentioned that Jerry Maguire as a character kind of starts the movie where a lot of 80s characters end up. Like where actually Tom Cruise's character in Rain Man kind of ends up, where he kind of sees the light and sees that being good to people matters. But this character's starting the movie with that. And we're getting what are the consequences of choosing to be good in a cynical world, in a world that values money more. I thought that was worth noting.
Mm-hmm. So after this grand exit, we find Dorothy back at home at her sister Laurel's house.
And then she lives there too, though. They all
She does live there. I feel like it's Laurel's house. I feel like she, and that's the feeling that I get. And Laurel being Dorothy's voice of reason, and a very funny one. I love. What do you guys think of the divorced women's group that's held at Laurel's house? Did you know that one of them, Alice, is Cameron Crowe's mom?
Yeah, one of them is Cameron Crowe's mom. Yeah, I like the device of the divorced women's group. I actually would have liked maybe, I don't know, a little more from them, even like a little more. But they're good as background too, and they make good background for some of the speeches that happen in the movie later too.
Yeah. And Laurel is being a good, I'm gonna guess, a big sister here, concerned about Dorothy and the potential lack of job and the health care. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Family or not, everybody, needs some health care.
Well, in the United States, we're in this. Ryan's in the beautiful land of South Korea.
So while Dorothy's trying to figure out her stuff at home, Jerry is out, trying to get another client.
His most important client, Cushman, was this guy is expected to be number 1 in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Which is a huge deal.
And Jerry goes to their house. He flies to their home, and Cushman's father says, "We're with you, and I don't do contracts, but my word is oak," and they shake on it.
We then see Jerry going to the draft, and this is pretty significant. This is where he might stand to make a lot of money with Cushman, and Rod is kind of an afterthought at this point. But on the way to the draft, we get a scene with Dorothy, Jerry, and Ray. And this is apparently Ray's famous line from the movie. I don't remember this well, but apparently Jonathan Lipnicki always gets this told to him. The human head weighs 8 pounds.
Yep.
Great line. He says it multiple times.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. But apparently, do you guys remember? You remember?
I do.
That?
I remember that line. The human head.
Yeah, they were having kind of a fact off going back and forth, and that was one of his facts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry's facts are all sports facts. And what does Ray come in with? Something about rabbits?
Did you know my neighbor has 4 rabbits? Jerry can't compete with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take Ray's facts any day. Yeah, so he's just being generally adorable. And then as Dorothy sees Jerry off, he goes into the airport, and Dorothy and Ray see this family who are hugging and kissing. And it's a mom, a kid, and a dad. And they're just looking longingly at it. I feel like both of them. Mm-hmm. It kind of gives you an idea of what they need, what they want. So Jerry has asked Rod to come to the draft, but Cushman's his first concern. He kind of says hi to Rod briefly and then goes right over to Cushman, who's in a sea of media. And this part cracked me up. Rod sitting there and these 2 kids to come up to him and they're like, "Are you Hootie?" From Hootie and the Blowfish. And and the look on Rod's face is just priceless. He's like, "No." And apparently actually Cuba Gooding Jr., according to the commentary, experienced this exact thing while he was filming Jerry Maguire. He was just out somewhere and somebody came up to him and said, "Are you Hootie?"
That's funny.
Which is insane.
That is insane and hilarious. Unfortunately, it dates the film because we get that, but
yeah, they actually had to change the reference in another country too to some other celebrity because nobody knew Hootie and the Blowfish in other countries either.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kids today, they don't know who Hootie is.
I don't really know who Hootie is either, to be honest.
Darius?
Yeah, I've never paid attention to that band. So
he has a scene in the country music scene now. That's what he does. Okay. FYI, I know a thing about Hootie. It lives on.
Well, after this, so Jerry's apparently with Cushman the whole night until he finds Rod really late at night and convinces him to walk around the lobby and kind of make nice with people. And it seems to be working for Rod. Rod's having a pretty good time. and like kind of lets loose a little bit. And Jerry's pretty happy with his day's work. So then he goes up to find Cushman in his hotel room, and everyone's acting a little shady in there. They're not really like looking directly at Jerry. Cushman's playing this like really bad version of Nirvana's Something in the Way. That really stood out to me. That like put the movie in its time. And then Jerry takes a call for them, like from the media, they think. And it's Bob Sugar on the other line. And he says, "Is Jerry Maguire there? If he is, sniff or something." So Jerry sniffs. And then he basically finds out that he has been fired from Cushman and Bob Sugar is their new agent. And then Jerry, the way Jerry plays this, I love how he plays it. He just like goes harder on trying to sign Cushman. He puts on the Team Cushman hat and he just goes in there like he never heard anything and tries to get them to sign. What do you guys think about this scene?
It's crushing because Cush's father did actually sign with Sugar after he had just told Jerry, "Oh, I don't do contracts. I don't sign. It's just a handshake." Like they totally double-crossed him, and it's quite devastating. I feel very badly for him there. Like he just took another punch. Roll with the punches.
Yep, exactly.
And that line when he says, we signed an hour ago, you were downstairs with the black fella. Like the way he said that, just kind of, the way it changes, like it seems like a loss. Like, oh no, something went wrong with this. And then the moment he says that, you're like, oh, this guy's just a monster. Mm-hmm. This guy's just a racist, horrible person. Yeah.
But I mean, I think Jerry still would have taken the paycheck, however, like if he could have gotten it, to be honest. Yeah. But and I love though that Jerry never holds it against Rod at all. That the reason he kind of lost this business was because he wasn't with Cushman the whole time. Like he recognizes that that's unreasonable from them and that like their attitude was terrible. And he recognizes like he takes responsibility for his own choices and he just puts all of his energy into Rod from then on. And he doesn't really look back. Okay, so then we find out the results of all of this on Jerry's romantic relationship, where Avery finds out what's happened to Jerry, and she's very blunt with him and very disappointed. Like she basically says, like, you dropped the ball on this. You should have been able to keep this. You lost the number 1 draft pick the night before the draft. But she says she still loves him and she still wants to be with him. So like, I think when I first saw this movie, I thought of Avery as like, oh, she's just terrible, whatever. But like, when I watch it now, I'm like, Avery has been completely honest with Jerry about the type of person she is from the get-go. And like, I don't see her as much of a monster as I used to, I guess, Like, I wouldn't want to be with Avery, but he chose to be with her,
I mean, I can get behind that. But then
okay, yeah. Go ahead, tell about it.
Well, he decides that, you know what? No, this is over. This isn't good. This is bad. And she's like, what did she say? She climbed some mountain and she goes, I can make this work. Like,
yeah.
Then you're like, oh, that's your love. Okay. Then she's a monster. Like that's
I don't think she's a monster for saying that. I thought you were going to say that she punches him. When she punches him, I thought that was out of line. But like, I don't know. Like some people, and even Jerry, like has this attitude later in the film where they think of love as something that you can make work, or a marriage is something that you can put together, like that it's a project. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've both had that attitude to a certain extent. So I don't blame Avery for having that. It's the kind of the deal they had. It's almost like a business deal.
Yeah. Jerry's a little kinder about it. That like saying this work, that sounds pretty. That's like
this
ego,
is after he's broken up. This is after he's just ended their engagement, though. You know what I mean? Anything somebody says after you've just broken up with them, I can be a little forgiving about. Like punching,
Fair.
I'm not good with, but yeah. Ryan, how's your feeling about Avery?
It's not just a punch. She gets the punch to the eye, then like knees him in the gut and knocks him down.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It's a whole fight sequence.
It's a fight sequence.
A one-way fight sequence. Yeah. So that's what the Dickie Fox quote. That's where the Dickie Fox quote originally was. Roll with the punches. Tomorrow's another day. Ha ha ha. So we are now going to go though to the Dickie Fox quote number 3, which will tell us about the next part of the movie. Unless you love everybody, you can't sell anybody. So this is the Dickie Fox quote that I thought was the most interesting in light of what we've seen happen so far in this movie. Is this movie really showing that like people who love people are the successful ones overall? I mean, Bob Sugar, does he love everybody?
Yeah, I was that was the quote that I was never really sure what it even meant or what I was supposed to feel from it.
Yeah. I guess it seems like sort of one of those like be interested in other people and you're interesting kind of theories. You know what I mean? Like be the kind of person that cares about other people and they will care about you. I don't know if it works in the real world that way necessarily, but you like to think it does, I guess. But the scene we see right after Jerry is in the one-way fight scene is drunk. I like to call this drunk sunglasses Jerry goes to Dorothy's house. Because he shows up on her doorstep drunk, wearing sunglasses, like he's just walked out of Risky Business or Rain Man or something. And Laurel, when she sees him, you can imagine how she reacts.
I love Laurel in this whole thing. She's hilarious. She's in full protective mode and warning Dorothy about guys in a vulnerable state. And then her like, he better not be attractive. And,
then he shows up and he's like looking hot, although drunk. Yeah.
Yeah. And she calls herself the disapproving sister.
No, she doesn't just call herself that. Like Jerry says, "Hi, I'm Jerry." And she says, like, does she even say her name or does she say just, "Hi, I'm the disapproving sister"?
I think she just says, "Hi, I'm the disapproving sister." And we find out that Jerry left his fiancée. And, there's cutting between Laurel and Dorothy and discussing Jerry. And then Jerry's been left in the living room and Ray comes out and he's supposed to be sleeping, but he starts hanging out with Jerry and cuteness ensues.
I think this is like, for me, this is like the cutest scene with Ray, in my opinion. I mean, it's hard to choose one, but like Ray's just like asking Jerry, like, can we go to the zoo? I want to go to the zoo. And Jerry's like, the fucking zoo's not open because he's drunk. And then Ray's like, you said fuck.
Yeah.
And then he says, I won't tell. It's so adorable. And then I think my favorite part of the actual movie, like I'm talking about the entire movie, is that Jerry's phone rings and it's Rod, and Rod is doing his usual like kind of ranting about what Jerry needs to do for him and going off on his like just rants about life in general. And Ray just is like talking to him like, are you a football player? And like who are you? And like you talk too much. And this is like cracking Jerry up, and Ray's cracking up, and like it's just such a great contrast. What do you guys think?
I mean, what's great about the scenes with Jonathan Lipnicki is that he never feels like he's acting. It feels like he's interrupting filming. And Tom Cruise always reacts as though he's laughing that Jonathan Lipnicki is interrupting filming. It always feels real, and that's what I love about it. And I'm sure a lot of it was scripted, but a lot of it is probably just him. Like it really seems like he thinks it's funny to make Tom Cruise laugh.
It does. And actually, I should have said the human head thing is actually something Jonathan Lipnicki was telling people on set. Like that's like him. I think they even added that scene because of his like little sayings that he had. So
oh, cute. I think he says it here on the phone too, and tells Rod.
Does he?
I don't know.
No, it's before the phone rings. That's the first thing he says to Jerry, because it's kind of like,
again,
I know how to make this guy laugh.
Okay. Cute.
That is true. That is such a kid thing to do. Yeah. And meanwhile, Dorothy and Laurel in the other room, and like Dorothy's trying to defend to Laurel why she should be interacting with Jerry at all, while like Laurel's just being like, no, like you got to wear this turtleneck, you got to like cover yourself up, like don't like let him be interested in you. And Dorothy tells Laurel she's the oldest 26-year-old in the world. Like she has a kid, she hasn't really dated much, or at least the guys she dated weren't great. And she just, why not take a chance here? So then we get this great part where Jerry is totally drunk with a fireplace poker, waving around and trying to reassure Dorothy about the future of the company.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed that the first time I watched it. And this time I'm like, oh my God, he's going to accidentally kill somebody.
Yeah, I thought something was going to break off the mantle. Another one of him being out of control. You might think I'm out of control. But
here I am with a fireplace poker, waving it around in your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dorothy says to him she just wants to be inspired. She doesn't need to be reassured. The memo meant a lot to her. And I think this is like why Jerry then like makes a move on her and tries to kiss her. I think he just wants somebody, like, I think the memo is like meant to be almost like a piece of Jerry's soul in this movie. What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so Jerry tries to kiss Dorothy and she pulls back and they're getting up and Jerry's like, oh, I'm going to be embarrassed tomorrow. And she's like, yeah, well, we work together. And he's like, I feel like Clarence Thomas, which people still know about Clarence Thomas, but that also makes the movie feel of its time in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then she says, I might not sue. And I think this is interesting because at the time, like, you know, the Clarence Thomas message was just more like funny. Like, you weren't really supposed to think that Jerry was sexually harassing her, I don't think, in the context of the film. I don't think you were ever supposed to feel like, ooh, that's icky per se. I think you were supposed to feel like, oh, he's a good guy because he's aware that he shouldn't do that. What do you guys think in the context of 1996?
It's showing, I think, like, especially the way she prompts him to apologize by calling him boss in that very distinct tone, is her saying this is not cool. And like you can see in her face and what she says after, like she does have a huge crush on him, but she's like, this is a completely inappropriate way to go about it, and you're ruining this for me. Like, this is my fantasy, but you are destroying it. And that's why she kind of says that and makes him realize that. So like,
see, I never had that
let's start
reaction.
this all over again.
That's interesting. I never felt that way about it, but that's interesting. It makes me wonder. But like, why would it be better the way it happens differently? Because he's still her boss. You know what I mean? Like, is it that he's her boss that isn't ruining the fantasy, or the fact that he's with a fire poker drunk at like whatever time it is?
I think that later it's after a date and it's more consensual, not him like leaping on her drunk after showing up at her house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But
and during a business meeting.
Yeah. Well, sort of a business meeting. I don't know.
Well, what he said to her was a business meeting, and then ended up not being it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, I always felt like you weren't necessarily supposed to think it was like a bad thing of him, but just like a careless thing of him at the time when it came out. But nowadays, I think people viewing it now would be like, dismiss his character outright. A lot of them, you know, like I actually was listening to a podcast. We're preparing to do Love Actually for the podcast. And I was listening to a podcast of like younger people, and they were talking about everyone in Love Actually is falling in love at work and it's so inappropriate and whatever. But like in the 90s, like a lot of people, that's where you fell in love. You fell in love at work. There were no dating apps, you know. Like you still had to like have sexual harassment laws to like make sure that people weren't taking advantage of this, but people definitely met each other at work. I just feel like it's been one of the big sea changes over the last however many years of like how what we feel is acceptable way to meet people and what we feel is unacceptable, and boundaries.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like, would this movie even work today if they rebooted it? That's a question, by the way.
Yeah. I'm thinking. I don't know.
Like, well, you know, it's not so much at all times a boss employee relationship. They're trying to build something together and working together. But I think it's just in that moment the way he's kind of used his power as her boss to invite himself in and like put her in a situation where it's uncomfortable to say no. I think that, like you were saying, the difference in the later scene is they have, you know, she has kind of invited him to invite her out on a date, and they've had an actual date.
Yeah.
She's acknowledged that it's a date, and you know, it's a different situation the second time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for sure. I'm wondering if, younger people these days would understand, like, or agree with that. Anyway, we can't really decide that per se right now, but like, I just think it's an interesting cultural shift. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this brings us to Dickie Fox quote number 4. I love getting up in the morning. I clap my hands and I say, this is going to be a great day. And I got to tell you, this is the one I aspire to. This is the Dickie Fox quote I want to be.
Yeah.
Does anybody get up in the morning like this? Ryan, do you get up in the morning like this?
Of course.
You do?
Every day.
I imagined you getting up like that, actually. Are you being serious with me, or are you fooling me?
Life is great. I'm excited.
Nice.
Oh, that's so nice. I don't think that at all. I'm like, oh, shit. used to be, oh fuck, but now it's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll get up.
I have both days. I have both varieties. So, but yeah, I sometimes don't have that energy, but when I do, I sometimes feel like that. And now, especially now that I work at a library, it's always a great day to shelve books. So,
oh, that's nice.
I'm such a nerd. Okay.
No, I love it.
All right, and then as we were mentioning, there's sort of a different date, and what's interesting about that is how she kind of tricks him into inviting her, where he's like, "I've made a mistake. I'm not gonna pursue this," and then she does "I'll just leave you alone," because she admits later she's watched that bachelor's party video a million times and memorized it, so she knows exactly how to
she knows
push his buttons.
Yeah.
So as soon as he thinks about being alone, he's like, "You want to get lunch? Want to get some dinner?" And he's like, "Yeah." So it goes from let's get dinner to he shows up and she's all dressed up. She has a babysitter. She shows up in that dress and he says, "That's not a dress. That's an Audrey Hepburn movie." Mm-hmm. And then of course there's that moment where Ray's there and he gives Jerry a hug and kisses him on the cheek, and Dorothy's just sobbing and in tears that this is happening. That's a huge moment for her, just that, this isn't just someone that she likes, but that her son is treating like a father.
Yeah.
And then she runs out, meets him on the street, and it becomes exactly like a date. They're at the Mexican restaurant. There's that awkward moment where the mariachi band wants to play romantic music. Oh no, we just work together.
Yeah.
And they have their date. They go on the front porch. They kiss. There's the moment where he snaps her dress and he does Tom Cruise face.
Tom Cruise face? What do you mean? What's the Tom Cruise face?
Tom Cruise face is where he squints his eyes and grins and laughs without opening his mouth and just shows his teeth.
Oh.
It's a Tom Cruise face.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And,
so true.
But I wanted to talk about this makeout scene though, because this makeout scene is epic.
It was hot.
I felt like I shouldn't be watching it. I felt like I should avert my eyes. It's very rare in a movie that I think you can capture that much sexual tension or heat between people without taking off. He didn't really take off any clothes. He took off
he's putting on clothes.
Yeah, he's fixing the strap.
Yeah. But then he's just kissing her slowly here and there, and it's much more intimate than if they'd just been French kissing. And I'm not even I'm not really into Tom Cruise, and I wasn't really putting myself in the position at all, I do sometimes as a viewer. I was just whoa.
Yeah. Well, and that lighting, they were both so well lit.
Oh,
and
I should have written down the cinematographer, because it's a very famous cinematographer who works with Steven Spielberg. I did not write down his name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But they got a really good cinematographer for the movie.
I noticed a lot of good lighting. I'm like, wow, they've made these stars very pretty and just so nicely glowing. And I didn't remember that scene being so, I was like, whoa, that's, yes, of course she would want this night to continue. Who can say no? Yeah.
Oh, and I love the part where she's like, I don't think you should come inside. And then she's like, come inside if you want to. And he's like, you too. And then she's like, well, I have to go inside. I live here.
They were just a little drunk in the moment.
And Ryan, did you have anything else to say about that scene? I feel like we might have cut you off. I don't know.
I was just going to say the name you were looking for was Janusz Kaminski, was the cinematographer.
Cinematographer. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Very famous and very, very talented. And then, okay. Yeah, I've got to play a clip of this too, because this is for high fidelity fans, you need to be reminded of this. So Dorothy goes in and tells Chad the nanny that her date is still going on. So then we get Chad the nanny coming out to talk to Jerry and surprising him.
I want you to use this.
Oh, look, God. Chad.
No. This is Miles Davis and John Coltrane. Stockholm, 1963. Two masters of freedom playing at a time before their art was corrupted by a zillion cocktail lounge performers who destroyed the legacy of the only American art form, jazz. Gotta put some Mingus on there, too. No barriers, no boundaries.
Chad, I got it.
Okay,
That's
I'm sorry.
hilarious.
I just had to put him on there because if you're a High Fidelity fan, you're like, okay, so Chad went on to change his name and move to Chicago and become a record store clerk named Dick. So
Yeah.
there you go. So they go inside and the jazz music is playing, which that is like some really intense jazz music to be like having sex to. I don't. It's a little bit of pressure if you ask me.
Well, I'm like, gosh, if that was distracting, I'm like, I would be like, turn that off right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It's got. There's too much going on there. Plus, it's like really loud. Like, is Ray sleeping? What's going on with Ray? Like,
Yeah.
anyway, but it is funny. Like because they're in bed and Jerry goes to her. This is going to change everything, and she says, "Promise." And then they're looking at each other, and then Jerry goes, "What is this music?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, it kind of pays off. It's a joke that pays off. Anyway, and we see Laurel overhearing the whole thing. It's just kind of being like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Having a smoke. She's sitting on the counter in the dark.
Yeah.
Smoking.
Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to say about this scene before we move on?
I'm ready for some spoilers.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to begin the spoilers okay section. So anytime, basically this means just bring up anything you want about the whole rest of the movie from now on. Okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah. And if you haven't watched the movie, go and find it and watch it. Okay? I think it's streaming someplace, but like it's also available at your local library. I guarantee it. Okay. So Dickie Fox quote number 4, which is going to go with the, like at the end of this section, not at the beginning. If this is empty, he points to his heart. This doesn't matter. Points to his head. Okay. So that's what's going to give a cap on this whole next section. It might tell you something about what's going to happen. Okay. So we get to the morning after of like the sex scene, and Laurel and Dorothy are in the kitchen, and Laurel is trying to ask Dorothy, like, kind of like, what's going on? What happened? And Dorothy like immediately thinks Laurel's worried about her, which she is. But, you know, it turns out Laurel was just looking for some spicy details. But Dorothy wants to tell Laurel is that she loves Jerry. Not just I love him, but like, I love him for the man he's trying to be. I love him for the man he already is. I love him for the man he's going to become. And as she's saying all this very loudly, we hear from the hallway, "Hi, Jerry." And it's Ray, and Jerry has been in the hallway the audience knows that Jerry's been in the hallway overhearing this the entire time. And wow, I felt so much for Dorothy in this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one distinction there is she never says, "I love him for the man he already is. I love him for the man he almost is."
Oh,
very important distinction. Yeah, I mean, she's in love with him because of that potential, I think. And whether he lives up to that potential is not her concern at this moment.
Dangerous. See, I'd be totally like her sister. I'd be like, okay, you're putting all your eggs in this basket that may not actually hold. So
yeah, she's telling her sister, men hanging on to the bottom rung are not a good bet. And like, and he also overhears that. But then he's really cool about it. Like, what's interesting about this scene is like, you kind of expect this really embarrassing, sad thing to happen, but instead Jerry just comes in and starts eating breakfast with Ray in this really cute way where they like clink spoons and they just go on with their life.
Yeah.
We're done with this, and now we're finding out what happened with Rod's contract. And Dorothy and Jerry are at the office. They get a fax, and it's a very low number for Rod's contract. And this scene was really great. Like when I watched it this time, I don't think I even noticed it in the 90s, but this time I really noticed it, how Jerry's telling Rod he's going to try to get more. It's just how negotiation goes. And Marcee, Rod's wife, is like, no, you should become a free agent. I love her line here. She says, she takes Rod's face in her hands and she said, "This is us, you and me. We determine our worth. You are a strong, proud, surviving, splendid Black man." And like the love in that moment, and like kind of like the cultural significance of like what it means to be a successful Black man in America, like it all just is very resonant. And I think like one of the best moments in the movie, really. And it was in 1996, like when there wasn't as much awareness about like racial justice as there might be right now. Did that strike any of you guys?
I remember liking it back then.
Yeah?
Too.
Yeah. The love that Marcee has for Rod, the love that they
Mhm.
have together is like much more powerful in a lot of ways than the main love story.
Yeah, they're a partnership, you know. That's what it is, and I loved it. This is I think she gets everything that Dickie Fox is saying, you know, like, and what I think even Jerry Maguire is trying to aspire to. Like, this is us, you and me, and we know our worth, and screw all the rest of how it's supposed to be and the way it's always been done, you know?
But
And it's great.
sort of the significance to this though too for Jerry is that, and for Rod really, is that like if you become a free agent and you get injured, you're just maybe out of a job entirely. If
Mhm.
you have a contract, you're protected. So they are
Mhm.
taking a big risk at this moment.
Yeah.
And we also get then Jerry asking Rod late about dating a single mother in a later scene. And Rod says single mothers don't date. They've been to the puppet show. They've seen the strings. And Rod asks Jerry, like, is he like really serious about Dorothy or is he messing around with her, which he refers to as shoplifting the pootie. And Jerry goes from, and Jerry doesn't know if he loves her. It turns out like he's been over there and he just can't say. He looks like flummoxed basically. And he goes from saying, I didn't shoplift the pootie to saying, I shoplifted the pootie.
Yeah, I remember the first time watching that being a big shock for me because like it really felt in the romantic scenes like he did was having feelings for her. And then when they're arguing, like he's saying I didn't shoplift the pootie, but then he says he did. I'm like, he did. Oh wait, he like he acknowledges that, like he knows he doesn't love her.
Yeah, this is like one of the and this gets us to the whole thing where I'm like, I think Jerry's the least developed character in this movie in a lot of ways because I literally don't know what's going on with this man, like in his head. Like I can't right now, having seen the whole movie, having seen how it turns out, I still don't know whether I think Jerry really loves her, whether it's going to work out, like why he's with her, other than loyalty, which he says later. I just don't have a very good idea about what drives him other than not wanting to be alone. Having sort of a basic moral compass and like, I don't know. That's it, I guess. What do you guys think? Like, what's your defense for
I think
Jerry
that's
being...
I think that's kind of purposeful. Like again, like I said, making him kind of unknowable because he lives in this world where people talk about business, they don't talk about their feelings, and like I think he doesn't know how he feels, and that's why we don't.
But like, going forth through the movie though, do you feel that develops further? Do you feel that he comes to know himself? Do you feel like that's played out? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't think he ever really figures himself out, which I'll get into more later.
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's why I call him the least developed character, though, because I'm just like, he is a character that, like, yeah, I mean, maybe the purpose is for him to be unknowable, but that makes it hard for me to, like, know how to feel about the rest of the movie. Okay, so now Dorothy's having to leave because Jerry can't pay her enough. Like, they just don't have enough money right now. And so she's going to move to San Diego with Ray, and she's all set with the freaking moving truck, okay? And this is the moment that Jerry chooses to, like, make a desperate marriage proposal to her. It's like, if you didn't have money, it would have been cheaper to do this before she rented the moving truck, but that's just me. Yeah. And what I found interesting in this scene is that Dorothy's wearing sunglasses, and she's wearing sunglasses in this scene, and then she's wearing sunglasses at her wedding. And previously we'd seen Jerry wearing sunglasses when he was drunk. And I feel like in a way it's like supposed to represent something maybe, like maybe her being willfully blind to what's going on.
Oh, I totally don't remember her wearing sunglasses at the wedding.
Not at the ceremony. We don't even see their faces at the ceremony, but at the reception she's wearing sunglasses too.
Interesting.
I feel like this is the section of the movie where like she's being willfully blind to what's going on.
Yeah. You're right.
Because he proposes to her and she accepts it. And I love how you see Laurel watching from inside the house being like, get in the car.
Yeah.
And Ray watching from inside the car being like, what's going to happen? Because he loves Jerry. He doesn't want Jerry to go. And yeah, like, what do you think about Dorothy's, like this whole scene and her decision to accept this proposal?
I mean, she says it later that she, pretended that proposal was real, and she wants those things. I think she wants a family, and she loves how her son loves him, and he's a good guy, and yes, She wants it to be, just as Ryan said earlier, the potential that she sees, but it's not there. And so she's, yes, willfully with the glasses on, not seeing that he's not in a good place to be getting married right now. He doesn't know his own mind. He's a mess, It's not a good time to make big decisions like that. She says it all later on.
And why
And
does
she
Jerry
was right.
propose, though? Just because of loyalty? Like, are we accepting his answer at face value?
He's got a problem he needs to solve, I think.
Yeah.
And what's the problem?
Problem is he doesn't want what they have right now to end. He doesn't necessarily want it to be a marriage, but they're building a business. He likes her kid. He likes hanging out with her, and he's like, I don't want to fail at this too. Here's a solution that I could have, and I don't think it goes any further than that. Just that his job is finding solutions for issues.
Yeah, that's true.
And Rod just called him out for you don't mess around with a single mother. So I think Jerry is trying to be a good person. He is a good person and finding out what does that look like. So could it be also I don't want to screw her over, and
yeah, I guess.
So let me be a good man here, and let's get married.
So Ryan, I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about the wedding, because you had you were saying something about that before when we were
absolutely. The next shot is my absolute favorite shot of the movie. I think about it constantly, even when I watch the movie. The wedding scene, it's an example of subliminal filmmaking that I love. First of all, the way it cuts from the proposal to a close up on the middle of the wedding, kind of subliminally tells you that was fast. You don't see anything else. You don't see any preparation, nothing. You just cut to their getting married. And then when you go to the wedding, you don't see them. You just see little Jonathan Lipnicki holding the pillow and the rings. And the audio in this scene is the priest says, do you, Jerry Maguire, take Dorothy? And you notice you never hear him say yes.
Right.
And you never hear her say yes. What you hear is what they whisper to Ray, which after Jerry, do you take Dorothy? He says, not yet. And then when Dorothy, do you take Jerry? He says, almost. They're saying it to the kid, no, not. And when you see the movie, it's the cute thing they're saying to the kid. No, you don't give me the ring yet. Almost time. But you can hear them whispering, but you never hear them say yes. So that's a very deliberate choice to this is their real answer, not yet and almost.
And you don't see their faces either. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't really notice that until you pointed it out, Ryan. So I really thank you for, pointing that one out. And I did notice at the wedding reception that Dorothy's still in the sunglasses. And, you see a little bit of the reception. You see Rod singing What's Going On, wailing on that. But you don't even really dwell that long on that. The reception's kind of over pretty quickly. And you cut right now to the wedding video. And what's significant about that is it cuts to Jerry at the wedding, and he just looks uncomfortable, nervous, sweaty, everything you don't want your groom to look like at the wedding. And you see Rod notice this and Dorothy notice this, and then you see each other noticing it. And it's it's not even something that she can keep to herself. She knows that somebody else saw it too, which is kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go through a section after the wedding. We're seeing Jerry and Dorothy actually being married. There's a scene where they're out with Marcee and Rod, and we see Marcee and Rod again being very affectionate with each other. And there's another scene that breaks my heart where Marcee and Rod are so affectionate. They're kissing each other. It's just very natural. And then Jerry kind of awkwardly puts his does he kiss her hand or something, or puts his arm around her or pats her kind of awkwardly?
Yeah.
So it's so awkward. I don't even remember it. And I'm just oh, terrible. It just made me hurt inside when I saw that.
Yeah, same.
And Marcee then is going to have her baby. She's pregnant. She talks about that all throughout the movie. You don't see that scene, but you see afterwards, Dorothy's trying to talk with Jerry about how he felt about that, witnessing that birth, being with the family. And he's just not saying much. He just makes these kind of noises. And she says, I don't really know your noises yet, which is another, you got married too soon, maybe.
Yeah.
And then after that, you get a big montage of Jerry just traveling to be with Rod everywhere he is, and Dorothy alone at home. And it's kind of like, this is not your successful after the wedding. This is not your happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I mean, they even ask each other, doesn't he say, why do you love me? And she's like, why do you love me? And then Ray comes in.
Yeah.
And right away he's like, can I come in, Jerry? And she goes, in a minute. And he says, yeah, just for a minute. And he puts the kid right between them. And so the conversation's over. And it's like, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say right now that, like, there, in a way, I feel this movie could have been just as good if those two hadn't worked out. Like, and it wasn't a love story anymore. And it was more of a story about Jerry realizing, like, getting real with himself and also getting real with Rod and Rod's story. What do you guys think? Is that crazy?
No, I think that could be true. Yeah. I mean, I like the ending, but I think it could have been a really good ending too.
Yeah, I'll get into that when we get into the speech, but I don't think they last in a very happy relationship after this movie ends, and they could have acknowledged that, and it would have been just as good a film.
Yeah. So then the next big moment in the film, we see Rod and Jerry kind of confront each other on their shit. And Rod and Jerry are actually one of the most important relationships in this movie. I would say equally important to Jerry and Dorothy. Just the way they play off each other and develop each other's character. In this section, Rod confronts Jerry about his marriage. Like, why aren't you home with your wife? Like, you know, accuses him of avoiding Dorothy. And then Jerry takes the opportunity to then confront Rod about his attitude. That he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He needs to get out of his head and play with his heart. He needs to take responsibility for, like, you know, getting the endorsements he wants by, like, being the kind of, like, athlete that gets these endorsements. And I thought that was really interesting because they're kind of coming from opposite ends. Like, Rod is, like, all heart in his personal life and Jerry is all heart in his work. And they both need a little bit of what the other one has, I guess.
Nice.
That's how I saw it. And yeah, and I thought this was such a great scene and such a great moment between two men in a movie that you don't always get, where they're just being real with each other. And I also read that, like, sports agents, like, this is the opposite of what a lot of times they're expected to do. A lot of times they're just supposed to be, like, kissing the athlete's ass. So this is kind of like something that only a renegade sports agent like Jerry Maguire would be able to get away with.
Oh, well, I kind of talked about, you know, what Dorothy says later on to Jerry when she breaks up with him. He comes home after this confrontation with Rod, and she says, you know, I did this, and I believe that proposal was real, and that she thought she could love enough for the both of them, and, you know, this isn't going to work. And he's like, no, I want, you know, he's trying to fight for it. And he asks her if she wants his soul, and maybe he's not built for that kind of intimacy. How do you feel, guys, about this confrontation? And, you know,
I mean, I think they're both like Dorothy's not getting what she needs, and it's good that she's acknowledging that.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are people who actually aren't built for relationships like that, though, and if they could still have, like, just as good of a marriage. Like, what if it turned out that like this is the version of intimacy that Jerry is capable of? I don't know. I don't know if the movie's trying to say that, like, that it would be wrong to be like that, because I think there might be people who just love differently too. It's just something I thought of this time watching it.
I think if that's true, then it's, you know, you get your partner could, you know, be on the same page, or already agree to it before the marriage, not, you know.
But she admits that it's her fault. Like, you know, that she did this, that she was trying to build him into something he wasn't. So I just think sometimes movies expect love to be very one size fits all. And whereas I'm very much like Dorothy, I don't know if everybody else is in the world.
You know, I mean, it's quite possible to be aromantic and have a wonderful relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what she's saying is that, you know, it's kind of a deal breaker if you just avoid your wife at all forever and never come home and spend all your money traveling to places you don't have to travel just to be away from her because you can't admit that you don't love her.
Yeah, I think that's probably that's what the film's definitely implying. But like, it's just an extra wonder I had this time, though, that if like that maybe Jerry Maguire as a person, since he isn't totally developed in this film, like maybe that just is his style. And like is it like in the movie as a whole just seems to be saying that style is wrong in a way. And I just wanted to say that I didn't think that necessarily meant that that style is wrong, just that the style has to work for both people or that kind of. Yeah.
Right.
Same
You got to
with
be
Avery.
upfront about it.
Same
is
with
all.
Avery. There's a perfect person for Avery out there too, who just wants to be really blunt with each other and like compete on hiking mountains and shit.
She's hanging out with Bob Sugar a lot later in the film, so
Is she? Oh, good noticing.
yeah, they're always together in that second half of the film.
Nice. Very nice. Bob Sugar and Avery's wedding announced any day now. Okay. So we come now to the last Dickie Fox quote. This is one that's at the very end of the movie. Like, so this is what the rest of the movie is building up to. He says, "Hey, I don't have all the answers. In life, to be honest, I've failed as much as I've succeeded. But I love my wife, I love my life, and I wish you my kind of success." And yeah, so we're going to have a happy ending, folks. We have Rod's big game is one of the big anchors of the rest of the movie. This is like the most football we've seen up to this point. Like this movie was very incidentally a football movie until now. There's just little shots here and there. We've got this big game now, though. Frank Gifford is announcing, like, what's at stake? Are they trying to be in the playoffs or something? I don't remember.
Oh,
well, first of all, it's just that it's the first like nationally televised game where he's on Monday Night Football of the season, I think. And
Okay.
I think that it's if they win, they get into the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah. And the stakes are kind of like that. And Rod's been doing really well, but he's also getting hit really hard in the game. And we know that he doesn't have a contract, so he could get really screwed if he's injured. And we get frequent cuts this time to Rod's family watching at home, especially Marcee. And his brother's being a dick and keeps like making like these really cynical comments about how Rod's going to get hurt or he's going to get nervous. Oh my God. And yeah, we see then Rod scores a touchdown and he does kind of a flip, but then he's knocked unconscious. And everybody goes from cheering and being happy to being like so worried that he's unconscious. And this is the first time we see Jerry. Oh, no, sorry. We saw Jerry run one other time in the movie. He ran to the Kinko's to deliver his mission statement. He runs again to go to Rod. I think it's pretty significant, the running. Like, he ran because he cared so much about the mission statement. Now he's running because he cares so much about his client who's become kind of his friend. You think?
Nice.
I think.
Tom Cruise loves to run.
I was going to say, that's Tom Cruise running.
Well, movies love to make people run too. That's like that's like all over the place. And and we see kind of like what kind of agent Jerry has become in this scene, because not only is he running out to see Rod, but he gets on the phone and calls Marcee right away. And this phone call is so beautiful. Marcee's just like, my family is my life and it doesn't work without him. And she's just in tears. And I think this is the only time I cried when I watched the movie.
Aww.
I did. I cried a little. Did you guys cry when you watched this movie ever?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, good that you cried, and I think it makes Jerry cry, and I mean that's the whole point, right? He's seeing that, like, yes, this doesn't work without relationships. This doesn't work without heart. This doesn't, Yeah.
Marcee and Rod are kind of like the example for Jerry that he's like kind of seen throughout the movie. Yeah. And so fortunately though, Rod recovers from his injury, and he told Jerry before that, like, I'm not going to dance. Like, I'm not the kind of, like, I'm a football player. I'm not an entertainer. And in this scene, the significant thing is he dances so much. Like, he does that end zone dance and he's like doing break dancing. He's like climbing up in the bleachers or whatever. I guess Paula Abdul helped a little with the choreography, but Cuba Gooding Jr. did a lot of it himself too.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
It's so rare, like in a football movie, his big, even though I think technically he does like help win the game in that moment, like they never mention it. What the big victorious moment is that he essentially does a pre-internet viral video.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's just showing him let loose as a character. Like, this is the moment where his character shifts and he lets loose. He does score a touchdown. They do mention that he scored the touchdown before he gets knocked out, but yeah. And then, so after the game, we see Jerry waiting as Rod comes out, and now Rod is surrounded by that media, the same way Cushman was at the beginning of the movie. And But instead of being in that media spotlight that Rod's been begging for the entire movie, he just runs over and hugs Jerry. And it just like shows like that both of them have developed towards valuing this relationship more than they do to the valuing like success or the spotlight. I think
so too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a real bromance. Like sometimes I'm not a fan of bromances because sometimes I think they're a little forced. But in this movie, the bromance is really strong and like beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
Like when you're watching it, Ryan, as a guy, like do you relate to the bromance in the movie?
Oh yeah, I just think it's an adorable little moment between them. They give that little hug. You know, whatever famous sports guy that I assume is a famous sports guy is jealous, and you know, he has that
Troy
little awkward
Aikman,
moment where there you go, and Bob Sugar like awkwardly tries to give him a hug, and he's like, "Get out of here! Don't fake it." And that shows in that moment that like what they have is real. It's not a performance for marketability purposes.
Yeah. And then you get Jerry's phone ringing and he immediately answers. He says, Dorothy? Like he thinks it's Dorothy, but it's Marcee. He gives the phone to Rod and Rod is all emotional talking to his wife. And then Jerry watches this and then runs off again for the third time, presumably without his phone. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me. I don't know if he kept his phone or not. But this is the third and final time he runs in the movie. And this time he is running for Dorothy through like an empty hallway, which is somewhere. Like, where is this empty hallway? I don't know.
Back up.
He was running out of the stadium and then through the airport.
Yeah, it's like nobody in the stadium, though. I don't know. Anyway, that's a nitpick. But anyway. Okay, so we come then to the big speech scene. OMG. So, Ryan, where's your monologue fit in here? Where would you best like to monologue about the big speech?
Well, I can just kind of say what happened here. So, you know, this is the big moment in the scene, where he confesses all his feelings. He finally arrives back at the house, and you know they're in the middle of the divorced women's group, and Dorothy's there talking about, you know, kind of finally for the first time saying like I feel like one of you, not in those words, but says men are the enemy, but I still love the enemy. And then that's when Jerry comes in. He doesn't see her because she's leaned over to pick up the cups. And he says, hello, I'm looking for my wife. And were you going to play the clip there?
Yeah, I could play a clip like here. And then just whatever else you want to say about it would be great after we play the clip. Mm-hmm. So this isn't the whole speech, but this is part of the speech that Jerry gives then.
Our little project, our company, had a very big night. A very, very big night. But it wasn't complete. It wasn't nearly close to being in the same vicinity as complete. Because I couldn't share it with you. I couldn't hear your voice. Or laugh about it with you. I miss my wife. We live in a cynical world. A cynical world. And we work in a business of tough competitors. I love you. You complete me. And I just had...
Shut up. Just shut up. You had me at hello. You had me at hello.
Yep. Probably the most famous scene in the movie, if not Show Me the Money. Indeed. There are a lot of pauses in there, too. Oh, my God. Like, but it's because you're looking at all the divorced women's faces as they're reacting to him. There's so many people to react to this scene, which is the genius of having that group, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So the scene is put in the movie as though it's like the big moment that shows everything he's all his growth and change. But if you like, I do not see it like that. Like if you break down what he's actually saying, you know, she says you had me at hello, but he never actually says hello to her. He says hello 2 times to the divorced women's group.
Okay.
The first thing he says to her is wait and okay. He says one sentence about settling. He's like, if this is where it happens, this is where it happens, which is like, I'm willing to settle. He makes kind of a threat about.
Wait. I'm going to contest that one. Like, if this is where it needs to happen, this is where it happens. I think that is just referring to the divorced ladies group. I'm not going to read too much into that, but
I'm
okay
it's
with
just
your contention. But
yeah.
Are you saying on the subliminal level? Are you saying on the subliminal
level?
Like that could be settling?
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about settling for something. Then he makes kind of a threat about I'm not going to let you leave me, which is kind of creepy. Then he starts talking about himself instead of her and his own history. He has a paragraph about his fear of being alone, which was set up much earlier in the film and has not changed.
Wait. What do you mean paragraph about being alone? Like,
he has that whole thing about how he had no one to share his experience with.
Okay. See, I found that part romantic. Like for me, like it's the first person you want to talk to when something happens is the person you're in love with. So that part did work for me. But yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you too many times, but I'm just making sure we put a pin in that.
And then there's that long pause you mentioned. He talks about he missed his wife, and it feels like he's about to say "I love you," but there's that long pause, and then he goes on a tangent about the cynical world and their business. And then he pauses again and finally says "I love you," but he like whispers it, like he can't say it. He like whispers "I love you," and then shouts out "You complete me," which is something he took from someone else and something he knows that she likes. He's like imitating someone who feels love. And then she says, "You had me at hello," which is the exact same thing as I told myself if he shows up, we stick with him, which is what was said earlier and did not work out. So
wow.
I love that he's said throughout the entire movie that and in that speech that he's the king of the living room, and showing up in a living room and giving a speech is what he does. That's his go-to. So it's not like he's grown and he's just doing his go-to move. And even before his mission statement, he did that. So it's just that's just the way he charms people into giving him what he wanted. He goes into a living room and tells them what they want to hear. And he knows that she likes mission statements, so he shows up and gives her one.
Wow,
that's my monologue.
That's crushes. It's just stepped all over it.
See, I thought I was cynical about this. I thought I was cynical about this scene, but like I'm not as cynical as Ryan is about this scene. Like,
well, we live in a cynical world.
Yeah,
we live in a cynical world. Yeah.
For me, there were parts that worked and parts that didn't work. Like the parts that work were like I mentioned, like being like, I didn't have you around to talk about this too, and like I missed you, and like to me that's like I always want to tell Lee everything that happens, or a best friend when I want to tell them what happens, and like if I can't tell them, it's really heartbreaking. And that's like one of the things that's so heartbreaking when somebody's out of your life is like they're not there anymore, and they're just the one person that would get it. You know what I mean? And I think like she gets the mission statement, and like that I think is as close as we get to Jerry's soul is this mission statement. And so he's there saying, "You understand my soul," which is still kind of selfish. Like he isn't really making an effort necessarily to understand her soul. But like, I do think that it's like an expression of like, you're a person that matters to me. So that works for me. I guess what doesn't work is almost everything else except for "I love you." Because "you complete me" does not do much for me. Like, I mean, I think there's certain couples where like they're complementary. And so "you completely" makes sense. But I don't know if that's really their relationship or not. And like you said, he's kind of cribbing it from somebody. My sort of generous reading of that is that in that scene before, he totally looked like he didn't get what "you complete me" could even mean. Like that somebody could even think that about another person. And I feel like you are supposed to read this as genuine. Like I think the movie wants you to read it as genuine. Yeah. But anyway.
The other thing I love about when he does say "I love you," the look on his face, it reminds me of like whenever someone does an impression of you and you feel like now you feel uncomfortable saying that again. Like all the X's at the beginning saying "love you too." Like it seems like he wants to say it, but like realizes he's going to sound like that. So that's why he's like, I love you. And then jumps into you complete me.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something funny about this. I don't remember if I read it or heard it in the commentary, but apparently when he said, I love you, you complete me, his acting motivation was to say that as if he was saying it to his real life wife, who I believe it must have been at the time Nicole Kidman, because he did Eyes Wide Shut right after that. So, I mean, they didn't really work out either, but yeah.
Haven't you ever been so overcome with emotion that you can only get the words out in like a teary whisper? No?
I have.
Just me? Okay. So I can see that.
But I'm definitely more like Dorothy, like, I love him for this, I love him for that. That'd be me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd shout it out. But yeah. No, so Sophia, has this ruined your enjoyment of the scene, or do you?
No, because I still am not sure about his, like it happens too quickly. Like I feel like, and that it's just in the time frame of the film, so that we're just gonna extend suspension of belief here that he turned it around and gets it now.
So I take it neither of you would go for his speech.
I don't know, I'd have to really. No, I would have totally, like, if I were Dorothy in that moment and like I thought he was gone forever and then he just came back and has anybody seen my wife, I would have been like, woohoo. I think I would have laid down my Laurel-ness and picked up my Dorothy-ness and said, you had me at hello.
I wouldn't say you had me at hello, but I would definitely give him a chance. I'd probably be like, we need to talk about this more in private. Let's go and talk about what this actually means and what you actually think in a private place without all the other people around. And Ryan?
Yeah, or let's talk about this for the first time ever. Let's have a conversation. It's not a monologue.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But that's a rom-com for you. The grand gesture speech and everything is magically resolved. Yeah. This is the most rom-com-y section of this entire movie. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're wrapping up the film. We wrap up Rod's story. He's being interviewed by this guy who makes everybody cry, apparently. And he finds out that he's received a contract for something like $11 million over the next 4 years, and the team he's already playing for. And he breaks down crying and saying he loves everybody. What's funny about this is I think maybe this was on purpose. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s Oscar speech is basically just him saying he loves everybody. He loves all these different people. So that's pretty awesome.
Did an impression of the speech.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, and then in this, he also in this interview calls Jerry my ambassador of Quan, which we didn't really talk about earlier. But Quan is a word that Rod has made up for himself, which means love, respect, community, and the dollars too. And like the fact that he like says, "I like Jerry, you're my ambassador of Quan," it just means a lot to Jerry. It's another bromance moment, and that touched me too. That touched me more than You Complete Me, to be honest. And final scene, we see Jerry and Dorothy walking with Ray between them. And then this sort of like capper shot where Ray is supposed to have magically thrown a baseball very, very far. And they kind of joke that there's an implied joke that maybe he could be a player, but Dorothy's like, not so fast.
Yeah.
And we hear the Dickie Fox quote, I love my wife, I love my life, and I wish you my kind of success. And the song Shelter from the Storm, which is kind of all about a woman who's taking in a man in a difficult time. That's what the song's about, essentially.
Yep. Yeah.
So do you feel satisfied by the end of the movie? Did you feel satisfied when you first saw it? Do you feel more or less satisfied now?
I feel satisfied of a story well told. And, even if I don't think they're going to, have the happiest relationship forever, what I love about the movie is that you can watch it 2 times and feel completely different about it. And feel that you've watched a completely different story. And I love the way it's told. I love the way it, like every scene is memorable in some way. Like there's not a single scene that doesn't have something to it you've never seen in a movie before, and to tell things in an interesting way. And I'm very satisfied at the end.
So you feel satisfied?
Yes, for what it is. For, as we just said, classic rom-com wrap-up happily ever after, and that was satisfying. But like in real life, I have problems with a lot of things.
I feel satisfied, very satisfied by the Rod and Jerry side of things. And I feel much less satisfied by the Jerry and Dorothy side of things. Like, I agree with Ryan. I don't think they're going to have like a happily ever after. I don't. Like, I think they're either going to stay together and kind of like have a half-assed marriage for a very long time. And maybe eventually they'll grow to be like kind of like sort of in love. I mean, people do have arranged marriages and they work out. So it could, maybe something great will happen. But like, I don't think it's going to be this big passionate thing per se that maybe Dorothy was hoping for. So, and I think they may break up too. I don't know. Sophia, do you think they'll stay together?
I don't think they're going to have a relationship like Rod and Marcee, but which I think has a lot of passion. I think they'll be comfortable. I don't know, like probably in real life they wouldn't last, but keeping with the rom-com They Live Happily Ever After, I do want to believe that they'll stay together. It's really
everybody
irrational.
wants to believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to end now with our double feature recommendations. My first double feature recommendation for Jerry Maguire is Rain Man. And the reason why is because when I was watching the movie this time, Jerry Maguire's character had certain commonalities for me with his character in Rain Man, or I could imagine like an earlier version of Jerry being like his character in Rain Man, and just much more of that slick, glad-handing, fast-talking kind of character who maybe isn't thinking about his moral compass at the time. And it's kind of like we're seeing that Rain Man character after he became good. And it's also just a good movie. It's worth watching for a great Tom Cruise performance and with Dustin Hoffman as well. So I think that would be a good double feature. My second double feature recommendation would be to watch this with another Cameron Crowe movie, in this case, Almost Famous. And because Cameron Crowe movies are long, this would be a very long night, but I think it would be well worth it. I think Almost Famous is also written incredibly well and flows seamlessly, and it takes you on a real journey, places you haven't been before. And it's also very 90s. Although, is it actually a 90s film or was it 2000?
It's 2000, but
it feels 90s.
It feels that, yeah, it's got the same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that nostalgia for the 70s that was all through the 90s too. Mm-hmm. And then my final recommendation, I went back and forth on this, but I eventually settled on Field of Dreams, which is just another great movie, which is about sports, but also about a lot more than sports. Mm-hmm. And it's also about somebody, in this case, Kevin Costner, who has a crazy dream and that he's going to do something that makes no rational sense to anybody else. And then how that works out for him and the consequences he faces, but also the lessons he learns on the way. And yeah, so I think those would all be good double features.
All right. Well, I'm going to recommend as my first one a Korean movie from 1986 called Gilsotum. And if you one of the themes of Jerry Maguire is people that have difficulty connecting. So this is a film about a family that was split up during the Korean War. Like a very young couple and their baby were separated and couldn't find one another. And then 30 years later, there's kind of a TV show that finds and reunites families and brings them back together. And it's about how the war and life apart has changed everyone in this family so much that they come together and it's meant to be this happy reunion and they just don't know how to connect anymore. It's not necessarily a comedy. It's kind of a drama. But there are funny situations where it's like this woman spent her whole life like, I'll do anything for my son. And then she meets him and he's kind of a jerk. And he's like, by the way, I need a kidney. And she's like, yeah, I got to bounce. I'm going to leave. So it's a very tense and fascinating movie. My second, I'm going to go with a Thai film called Citizen Dog. That's kind of a romantic comedy that's very surreal. There's a lot of weirdness to it that I love it so much. It kind of reminds me of Jerry Maguire in, like I mentioned, like the fast way that things are constantly happening. Here's a new set. Here's new characters. Let's go to this. Let's go over here. But instead of being like, it's just the wildest, like weirdest, like surrealist thing that still comes together to tell a story about a romance. And I'm going to go to another Korean movie called Exit. And it's kind of that thing about someone who's so passionate about one thing that they have a difficulty thinking about anyone else. And it's about a guy who loves like rock climbing at the gym. And it's an action movie where a very Korean thing is have action movies where like the character doesn't have zero of the resources and skills necessary to survive. But in this one, he only has one skill and it is mountain climbing. And then everyone's in danger. And not even mountain climbing, like fake rock climbing. And he's like, I'm going to use this one skill to save everyone and get the girl.
Okay. Nice.
I'll have to check some of those out. This is the first time somebody's come with double feature recommendations where I've not known one of them, so that's very intriguing to me. So thank you, Ryan.
That's my goal.
Yeah, you did it. My recommendations are Return to Me. I think I've recommended it before. And that's Bonnie Hunt's film that she co-wrote and directed and co-starred in. I also wanted to do Almost Famous, but since Jen took it, I went with Say Anything because I do love it, and that's another one of Cameron Crowe's. And then I just watched it in the past couple days, The Last Dance, the documentary series about the Chicago Bulls. So I do like sporty documentaries and it shows a lot of like the players and their like Michael Jordan's drive to like, I just want to play the game and I'm going to win and I'm going to win and that's what I want and I'm going to bring my team with me versus like, the guys who own the team and like management and front office and how there was a lot of tension in those places. So your real life inside scoop in that kind of athlete and business end of things. It was good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys both so much for coming on tonight. And Ryan, thanks for being the first man on the podcast.
An honor.
And we really enjoyed hearing your insights. I think I can speak for Sophia as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I just wanted then to remind everybody that if you want to send us feedback, write us at feedback@everyromcom.com. You can find the podcast at everyromcom.com as well, and where you get your podcasts. And in upcoming episodes, we're going to be moving into the Christmas season. So keep an eye out for Love Actually and a few more Christmas movies in the coming weeks after this. Talk to everybody next time. Goodbye.
Bye.